All right. All right, we will call to order this City Council regular meeting for Monday, February the 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. 2022 at 6:30 p.m. If you will all rise, we will be led in prayer by Mayor Pro Tem Hernandez and our pledges to both flags by Councilmember Kamkar.
If you would please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for bringing the community together tonight and guiding us to make decisions in pursuit of your will. And please help us to understand that we may all come with different talents and visions for this city, that ultimately we don't know the end to the beginning that you have set forward. So our actions tonight, we should go home knowing that we all are here to serve you above all else. In Jesus' name I say these things. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right. Y'all don't know how awesome it is to hear the word Texas said by everybody in the room at the same time. It's pretty cool. So anyway, thank you all for joining us, joining in with that tonight. As we move forward in our agenda, roll call and certification of a quorum. We'll certify we have a quorum and all members are present. So we get an A in perfect attendance tonight. Moving forward with citizens' comments, Mayor Pro Tem, we have a handful of people who have just general comments. And then we have a handful of folks that want to address a specific item. And if you signed up to address a specific item that's on the agenda tonight, your name will be called when we get to that item. So with that, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. First up, we have J.W. Washington. If you wouldn't mind, please make your way to the podium. State your name and address for the purpose of the record. And you'll see there's a timer up here, conveniently placed, so that you can please keep your comments to under 3 minutes. We appreciate you being here tonight.
Good evening. Howdy, my name is J.W. Washington, 2903 Amber Hill Trail, Pearland. Want to address, I guess, a couple of things here. My family and I have lived in Pearland for 13 years, and I think as we look towards the future and items that are on the docket tonight, I think we all can agree that drainage is very important, and the methods within which that we keep our families, our friends, and our businesses safe and secure. So I bring those things up in context of two things. One is a concerned citizen, and I look forward tonight understanding the methods within which that we want to take steps to have effective drainage. And I think that then ties into the manner within which we partner with other entities. I think it's very common knowledge. I'm running for Brazoria Drainage District Commissioner, place 3. So I think as an understanding of a citizen and also as a candidate, to understand the methods within which we'll address drainage. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for being here and for those comments. Next, Mayor, we have Ted Kaladova. Is that correct? Okay, well, please state your name and address for the purpose of the record. Thank you for being here. And it looks like you're speaking on behalf of an organization, so if we could, we'll give you 5 minutes for that presentation. Thank you for being here.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, it's Kalavota as check name. My name is Ted Kalavota, 11506 Starlight Bay Court, Pearland. If you would allow me just to take a few minutes to give a recap about our organization and kind of let council rediscover where we came from and where we are today. We would like to kind of give you a briefing today and in 2 weeks come back with a small proposal and bring a few of our club families with us to see council. So in 2007, I decided to start a soccer club on the west side of Shadow Creek. It was just getting built. We started with 24 children, ages 4 and 5, and I did all the refereeing and website construction and all that kind of business. And it was a blast, driving to work early in the morning and coming back late at night and getting everything started. and then having my daughter born the year before, and then my son in '09. So we grew from about 24 players to what we have now, 1,300. We represent all of Pearland and also operate under the name of Pearland Soccer Club. So that 1,300 is getting ready to become 3,000, and you might wonder why. And one of the reasons is that the parents and the families and the kids, they love the organization. It's a positive family environment. We try to keep a strong cap on negative comments, and everything's positive, and people leave with smiling faces during games and practices. The other reason is I have a little bit more spare time on my hand after a long career working in the oil industry, and so now I'm going to be dedicating a little bit more time to doing some marketing, which we've never really done. So Pearland is huge number of children in schools, as you know, in ISD, Pearland ISD, and also in Alvin ISD, and we have just scratched the surface of representation. What I've done also in the last 13 or 14 years as a volunteer is start a summer swim program and also flag football. We did basketball for a while. We also have a baseball program, and we are the primary users of the Shadow Creek Baseball Park on the west side that was recently funded by the City of Pearland. We have over about 450 players that play fall and spring in a developmental baseball environment. It's a little bit less competitive than Dad's Club. So I also want to thank City Council for keeping their sanity over the last 2 years. It hasn't been easy, and I know a lot of us in early 2020 were pretty scared, didn't know what to do, didn't know how to approach things. But we soon found out by early summer that the best place and the safest place for children and adults was in school and also exercising in city parks. And I'm really thankful to City Parks and City Council for keeping those parks open, letting us get out into the fresh air, get some vitamin D. The smiles that the families had on their faces was just unbelievable. It just made me so happy. And I'll just have a minute more, if you may. We did cancel things in the spring, and we delayed it until summer. Every couple of weeks, we kept on delaying. But we decided to go ahead with summer swim and then summer baseball, and then we started soccer in August. And the families were just, to be able to get outside the house was that's hard to believe, but they were just so thankful. So it's to your credit that you guys kept the parks open. We appreciate that. We're looking at unprecedented growth. People want to get out. People want to experience sports, healthy activities, and we're happy to provide that service to our residents and our Pearland families. And we look forward to coming back in a couple of weeks and sharing a little bit more information with you. And we're just very excited to be in front of you and to give you thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor, next we have Claudia Ramming. Please make your way to the podium. State your name and address for the purpose of the record, and we'll get that timer reset for you at 3 minutes. We appreciate you being here and your patience.
My name is Claudia Ramming, 3239 Lee Circle. Good evening. I hope that you've all had the opportunity to read the email that I sent out last Tuesday, February 8th, titled Pearland Animal Control Drops the Ball in Reuniting Pets with Their Owners. This is an absolutely deplorable situation that the Pearland Animal Control has created. On Friday, January 14th, they were fully aware that a young lady had been in that morning looking for her young female brown tabby cat. So when I called that afternoon, a little after 3 p.m., they told me that they had found the young brown tabby cat. They immediately told me of the young female, the young lady that was looking for the same cat. They asked if I could bring it in. When I did, I asked if they would be contacting the young lady, and they said yes. Yet later I found out that no one had bothered to take down this young lady's name and contact information so that they could reach out to her. I also find out later that this is part of Animal Control's protocol to be sure and get the name and contact info of anyone that came into their facility looking for a missing pet. I called later that day to find out that they had called the young lady, or to find out if they had called the young lady, and they said they had not. I called the next day and asked again, and at the time the person with animal control tells me that it was not her cat. This is not true because no one from animal control ever contacted Jillian because they didn't have her contact information to call her. I was also told when they first brought the cat to them on Friday the 14th that they would be posting a photo and description of the cat on their Facebook page. I kept checking the City of Pearland webpage where they show the listing of pets, and I never saw the listing until Wednesday the 19th of January. And even then, it was just a brief description and no photo was ever shown. I checked back a couple hours later, the listing was gone, totally removed. I immediately called animal control to ask what had happened to this cat, which they called Addie, and was told that a rescue group had picked her up and taken her to the Houston SPCA Adoption Center. Now, fast forward a couple of weeks, and I see Jillian's post on Nextdoor. Jillian is the young lady that lost the cat. We have been in contact ever since. She went to the Houston SPCA to try and get her cat back and found out that she had been adopted on January 29th. Then to add insult upon injury, the Houston SPCA will do nothing to help to get Batty back to Jillian, the cat back to Jillian, who is the cat's rightful owner and has known the cat since raised her from a kitten. It is really deplorable to think that Jillian and I were there at the Pearland Animal Control on the same day, and they could not even get her reunited with her cat, knowing full well that the cat I brought in was very likely hers. And it's disgusting to think that our tax dollars are going toward condoning and perpetuating this kind of behavior. It is disgraceful that a city organization be run in such a manner. And I really hope for the change, and I demand a change on behalf of Jillian and her cat, that the city will take a stand to correct the wrongdoing that started at this city organization, the Pearland Animal Control, because I know if it happened to them, that it's probably happened to many others. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yes, I can confirm that we did receive your email. Thank you for coming to speak as well. Finally, Mayor, we have Joseph Koza. Would please make your way to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and 3 minutes up there for you. Thanks for joining us this evening, and thank you for your patience.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Joseph Koza, address 2403 Green Tea Drive. I'm a lifelong member of the City of Pearland. I also have owned a home here for right at 32 years and am employed with a family-owned business that's been here for over 57 years. I would like to announce this evening that I will be running for the City of Pearland City Council position number 1, and I look forward to a robust campaign, looking forward to meeting new people that I have not known before, as well as all the folks that I do know here in Pearland. Thank you very much. God bless and have a good evening.
Thank you very much, Mayor. That's all we have for general comments.
All right. All right. We're going to be moving towards new business, but I do want to just stop and make note to the public that our City Secretary, Crystal Roan, this is her last meeting with us. She's moving on to a different sister city, we'll say that. So this is her last evening with us. And Crystal, it's been a pleasure to work with you. It's been a pleasure with this council to work with you in your professionalism and your role here as City Secretary. We wish you well, and come back and say hi. And the only other housekeeping items that I'll say is we should be able to get out of here by 8 o'clock tonight, right? I'm setting a goal. All right? So with that, we're moving towards new business. Presentation by Kimley Horn and Associates on the Pearland 2040 Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use exercise. With that, staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Josie Ortiz. Do y'all need my address, or is that just for 11700 Katy Freeway, number 800 77079? So we are in the middle of the comp plan update, as you all know, and we wanted to give a brief update on our public website, pearland2040.com. We've had a couple of public meetings. We're gearing up for a couple more. And we just wanted to let you all know that we have updated the website with a new activity. Generally, there are screenshots on the screen here. There's a map that has orange highlighted areas where people can drop pins that represent certain place types, so land uses for the future. So we're just trying to get some general feedback on what people are looking to see in Pearland in the future. They can also register their email for updates on the project, look at the upcoming events, and again, the interactive map is up there.
So one of the cool things about being able to stand at the podium and present to council about Pearland2040.com is the fact that I can see so many people on their cell phone. We actually have a QR code on the screen right now. So you can actually take your phone, go to the photo app, and take a shot of that QR code, and it'll take you directly to the Pearland2040.com website, where you can participate in the place type preference and then have your voice heard throughout the city on what you want the future of the city to look like.
That quick. All right, this is a great opportunity for our citizens to take a part in a process of what our community to look and feel, what we want it to be like, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, certainly by the year 2040, so which is 18 years from now. And so we want your feedback. We want your interactions. So this will be good. With that, is there any council questions, comments towards this activity? All right, seeing none, we will move towards our first public hearing. I'll have staff read the reason for the public hearing under your staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a request for Lumin Mills applicant on behalf of KDTC Investment LLC, owner, for approval of a conditional use permit for massage establishment use within the general business district to accommodate a full body massage establishment within the existing building on the subject property, which is approximately 0.4784 acres of land with a general location of 3526 Broadway Street, Pearland, Texas. So going into the summary here, this is, again, for a revised conditional use permit to allow for a full body massage at 3526 Broadway Street. This site is located on the south side of Broadway, just east of North Galveston Avenue, in a strip center that has been in the city since the late 60s, early 70s. Here is a site plan of the building. This is the floor plan that was provided by the applicant, showing where the massage rooms are located. And then this is some views of the property. So the Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing and discussion at the January 4th meeting. All four members that were present at the meeting stated they would not approve of this conditional use permit request. We do have the applicant at the podium, and I believe they have brought a translator to help with their presentation.
All right, then we will, if that concludes staff's report, then we'll move to the applicant for any applicant presentation, and we welcome you back again tonight. And I will say it's not mandatory that an applicant give presentation, but since you're here, we always like the opportunity to hear from the applicant. And if you would, please give a name and address just for the record.
Yeah. My name is Lumin Mills. My address is 1616 Avenue R, San Leon, Texas 77539. I'm a law-abiding citizen of the United States. I don't have any abstains, no any fines. I hope to pass the hearing. Thank you, everybody.
So you're here to just answer questions if needed, correct?
Okay. Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. When we get to questions and answers, why don't you stand to the side, and when we get to questions from council, if we have any questions for you, then we can ask you to step to the podium and answer the questions. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We'll move to the next item under the public hearing, and that's those wishing to speak for or against this proposed request. If you want to speak in favor or against this proposed request, you can go to the podium, give your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. Second opportunity for those who wish to speak for or against this proposed request. And then third and final time, those wishing to speak in favor or against this proposed request, go to the podium. Seeing no one moving in that direction, we'll move to City Council. Questions, comments, concerns? Member Orlando, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I had several questions. Just before I was on City Council, there was a lot of time and energy that was put into coming up with rules around massage parlors and trying to combat human trafficking and kind of working with some leading groups around that to put into place, best practices to mitigate that kind of threat in Pearland. And it seems like a lot of those, this was actually the very first massage parlor that was approved in the wake of those changes. And it seems that a lot of those conditions that were applied were not followed. So I had some questions about that. But I guess the first question I had was just, I know you were not the original applicant that came before us in December of 2019. So I guess I just wanted some clarity on how you came to own this massage parlor from the person that originally came and sought the conditional use permit.
I do regular massage. I buy the shop from other lady.
Okay.
Yeah,
And,
September 2020.
sorry, in September 2020?
Yeah.
Gotcha. And I guess at that time, like I was just discussing, there's several conditions that are placed on massage parlors. Did she share with you those limitations that were put into place on your business specifically, relating to, for example, not covering the windows, not having anyone living on site at the massage parlor?
Yeah, it's because my window is clear, no anything. It's because the Kyle is inspection ready.
Yep.
Here, I make a picture. The shop window.
Yep. I think a big issue, and probably the reason that you're here tonight, is that when the person came in and applied for the massage permit, they specifically asked for a foot massage only permit, and that's what was granted. And I think one of the issues was that there have been regularly, I think almost the entirety that this has been open, full body massages being performed, which is in violation of the conditional use permit. I guess, was that shared with you that was not allowed?
No. Not tell me.
Okay. Thank you. And I guess now a question for community development or for legal. What is the current process right now when a CUP changes hands in terms of making sure those conditions are being conveyed to the new owner?
So whenever someone comes in for occupancy of a building, we typically share those conditions because it is a part of our process to ensure that anything that is a part of that property, that information is shared.
Were those shared with Ms. Mills then?
Correct. The problem, if I may,
Sure.
is that that process was not followed because it was a change of ownership and she did not apply for that permit until November of 2021.
Is it required that if there's a change in ownership that you apply for a new permit, or?
You're supposed to, but not every business. We don't catch every single business.
Typically, they come in and apply for an updated occupancy certificate with the new name of the business owner. And so, but we don't know if it changes unless they come in and tell us it changes.
Gotcha. But that is a requirement that you need to get a new CO that says the new name of the business owner.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this is something, and we've seen this a lot. We're going to talk later on in this meeting about CUPs. I think there can be a future discussion about when do we trigger reconsideration of a CUP, especially when there's a handoff in ownership. I don't think we want to do that for every single CUP we issue. I think gas stations kind of change hands all the time. But I think there's some like this where it would be important that the applicant or the new owner understand the limitations that are being placed on the business. I guess just before I kind of shared the other information I have, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to explain. You know, I think it was very surprising to me. I think it was probably very surprising to a lot of members on this council to know that there was a residence, there was like a bedroom built in the back of this massage parlor, which is specifically against the conditions laid out for massage parlors, but also just isn't really typical in a commercial or business space. So I guess I just wanted to know what the reasoning is for that.
No, it's here only myself work here, not anybody, only myself.
I guess.
I don't live in here. I live in my home. Yeah, when I bought the shop, before the owner is the lady not tell me the shop only foot massage. Is last year the city is officer tell me only foot massage, no body massage. Yeah, and nobody live here. It's only myself work here, not anybody.
And if I could just get clarification from community development, it was the case that upon inspection of this facility, there was a residence in the back. Could you describe that a little bit?
So our development inspector that went out and performed the inspection saw that there was personal effects, some clothing, items used for personal hygiene that you normally wouldn't find within a business, unless it was someone using it as a place of residence.
Gotcha. Okay, so just to explain where I'm coming from, as I mentioned, there was this huge discussion about, you know, how do we prevent certain types of illegal activity from happening in massage parlors in Pearland. There was meeting after meeting after meeting. I was running for city council. I came and sat out here and saw all of those, and there was a lot of thoughtful discussion, a lot of hard work put into those. This was the very first massage parlor that came up in the wake of those new rules. We approved this in December of 2019, and I felt good there that, oh, okay, we put these rules into place. This is going to make a difference. By January 21st, 2020, so remember, December 2019, we approved this. The next month, on January 21st, we receive a letter from someone alleging inappropriate sexual activity was occurring at this massage parlor. Of course, that's unproven, but they did make two accusations that are easily provable or disproven, which is that the windows were covered, which was a violation of the rules that were put in place for new massage parlors, and that they were offering full body massages, which was a violation of the conditions specifically put on this massage parlor. So on my way to a city council meeting, I stopped by there. I observed that, in fact, the windows were obscured. And I walked in, and there's a sign hanging up that offers a price for a full body massage. And I said, can I come in tomorrow and get a full body massage? And they said, yes. So I left and gave our staff a call and said, hey, this is really frustrating. We just approved this conditional use permit. There are multiple clear violations of this. It seems to indicate to me that we're dealing with someone who is acting in bad faith, who never intended on following the rules. I would like to revoke the conditional use permit. And I checked as we were having this discussion when that was. That was on January 28th of 2020. So 2 years ago that I requested that. So I just have a few comments on this. One, we have to have a better process in place for ensuring compliance with our zoning laws. I mean, I'm going to say that until I'm blue in the face. That has come up again and again and again. We are seeing these bad actors, whether it's at a massage parlor, whether it is at a vape shop or not a vape shop. It just says that on the receipt, but they're not a vape shop if that's what it requires to shut them down. We have to have a mechanism in place for enforcing the work that we do up here, or honestly, this is just a waste of time, and we don't need to get together and make these decisions. Two, I think that's especially so when it's something as serious as this. I kind of thought it was silly that we would have a rule in place that would prohibit someone residing at a massage parlor. I didn't think that was something that actually happened, that you had to put into a law. And the very first massage place that we approve after writing these rules, we see it happen. And it's taken 2 years to get a follow-up on that. And so I'm willing to work on that. I think we ask our staff to do a whole lot of things, and we pull them in a lot of different directions. But I think that some of these things are very important for a quality of life perspective for people in Pearland, but also very important in this case for possible illegal activity or trafficking of other people, which is just unacceptable. So unfortunately, I'm going to be voting no on this proposal. And further, I don't think we can do it at this meeting, but I would ask that at the next meeting, if I could get some support for it, that we would revoke the existing conditional use permit, because I think it's very clear that from the very beginning of the 2 years that this has been established, it has been operating in severe violation of almost every condition that was laid out in that. And so, unfortunately, I'm going to be a no, and I would ask that we move ahead in that direction at the next meeting. Thank you for indulging me, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments from council?
I think I agree with most of Orlando's comments, and think P&Z got it right.
So last meeting on this item, I had made some requests for information about proving ownership here, and I see there's this letter of intent with another different name. There's now the applicant tonight is listed as an agent for the applicant, who, whenever you pull up their information on the state's information websites, it lists a completely different name for the agent. The landlord is just referred to as landlord, so I don't see any actual landlord information in here for this letter of intent. I think there's just a lot of just misalignment of information here, which I think serves to bolster the argument that was just made, that there's really just not a lot of faith in this transaction. So I don't know if staff, you wanted to respond. Did y'all find anything out about this ownership issue, or are we still?
We found similar information to what you found.
Okay, so there was no clarity from last time to now?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so I suppose then in that vein of thought too, until I can get something that I think is clearer as far as who actually owns this facility, who is responsible for it. It's one thing to have mechanisms in place to try to enforce the rules that we put in place, but if we don't know who's actually responsible for it, I think that further complicates it, and so I would probably be a no as well, Mayor. Thank you.
It's for the applicant. Is there somebody that speaks more fluent English that is here to address some of these comments? I really haven't heard a consistent flow of thought from the applicant. And I think we pushed this off 2 weeks ago, or was it maybe a month ago, to give time for that translator to appear. Is that translator with us?
And you're free to step to the mic and add clarity to it, and that would actually help. If you'll give your name and address, that would help as well.
Oh, yeah, she owns the place. She's
Your name and address, please. Record.
What's your name and address?
Oh, you, sir.
My name and
yours.
address?
Yes, you're at
Okay.
the podium speaking. We need your
Okay.
name and address.
Robert Purinton, 1710 Bryson Heights Drive, Richmond, Texas.
Great. Thank you for coming, first of all. We pushed this hearing off because we didn't think we were giving a fair opportunity, and I think the language barrier was the biggest item, and we appreciate you helping.
Yeah.
Is there clarity on the applicant's side of what, it sounds like a business was purchased from somebody else under an older CUP?
Yes.
Is there some understanding on the applicant's behalf of what the requests were and the conditions of that initial CUP?
I don't think she knew, and I don't think she has the papers on that. And she said she'd only had it for about a couple of years. So.
Okay.
I don't think she knew either.
Does the applicant understand the concerns that were brought up?
Yeah,
in
I've
this-
been
in
telling
this?
her.
I bought the shop is September 2020.
This body before I got here made a really strong effort around sexually oriented businesses and massage parlors and things of that nature. And I just
Yeah,
have a lot of reticence.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard anything to make me feel less reticent.
Okay. Well, I know she's the only one that's working there. So, and as far as I know, none of that's happening.
And in the issues around the living quarters, is there any comment? 'Cause I haven't heard anything in rebuttal
As
to
far as I
that.
know, she don't live there. But of course, she has refrigerator stuff for day use. She just uses it as day for
Here,
the day use.
only myself work, no anybody work here. When I bought the shop, myself work, I never hear anybody. I have home, I don't live here.
I haven't really heard a whole lot of convincing, and we've given other users, the vape people, the 24-hour vape people, a much harder time, and I would tell you, I think that is a different effect on the community. And I would tell you that the items that were previously brought up about enforcing the rules, this is for the staff's edification. I would really like to see what our processes are on this, because this is not a 1 week item, a 2 week item, a 1 month item. This has been happening over 2 years. This lady, unfortunately, sounds like she was scammed into purchasing this property, I guess. And at the end of the day, I don't really see a whole lot of movement on wanting to approve this. I know this gentleman over here, I tune into the P&Z, and we're going to enforce the rules. And it's really, really hard for us to enforce rules over here on one set of items and then don't enforce the rules over here. And it sounds around some of these items with CUPs that enforcement is patchy. And I'm trying to be really delicate on that. So I'm going to agree with Member Carbone. The P&Z, I think I've tried to not step on them. Voted 7-0. Not one person out of 7 could be said, well, let's see what happens here. And I have to take that comment really seriously. So I would just hope for the staff's edification that we can maybe talk about a memo of what are we doing on CUP discussions and enforcement as a learning tool out of this. Because I have a funny feeling if we had a better enforcement, there may not have been this lady that has unfortunately bought a business that doesn't probably think it's going to get a CUP. So those are my comments, Mayor.
Member Little, anything? All right. Member Perez?
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, I think I'm not one to cast aspersions and make assumptions, but I do think that the enforcement mechanisms we put in place are what are seemingly working. We did capture this. We did identify it. Certainly, we can always argue about expedience. I think I'm going to kind of torn because I don't want to assume the worst of a situation and then make judgments based on what I assume is the worst. I want to try and assume the best of people. I'm going to assume that she's just trying to make a living, and this is a way for her to make a living. And we put the enforcement mechanisms in there so when they do not operate, we can force them to comply where we didn't have those provisions in place. Kind of torn, but I think, I don't know that I can feel comfortable expanding the use, but I certainly don't feel comfortable assuming the worst and coming and revoking the CUP and taking away her livelihood completely. So I think I'll vote no against this tonight, just because I'm really compelled by what Member Hernandez stated about not being able to track the ownership. I think if we can't feel comfortable that we're dealing with the owner and the person who really has the right to apply for this, then I don't feel comfortable moving forward. But I don't think I can get on board with revoking it altogether. All I have, Mayor.
Member Owens?
Well, when you're number 7, everything's been said. So, but it's some good questions that came up, and
Why do you think I started it down here?
No. So, but there is a lot of concern, and I think, I hate to see somebody get scammed, I guess, on something like this, but it happens every day. But as it is right now, I would have to vote no on this.
All right. Member Hernandez had a quick follow-up.
Yeah, I just wanted to, since we do have some people here to help explain what's going on, and I guess for everyone else here, because I was listening to the conversation up here, Mayor, and maybe it's a little muddy, just so she's aware that we're not voting to shut down her business tonight. We're just voting to expand the use, as Member Perez mentioned. So I just wanted to make sure that was really clear, that the business as it was sold as a foot massage business, can continue to exist. We're just voting on whether to expand to allow additional use, which is full body massage. So just to make sure that's clear, because it looked like maybe that wasn't making its way across. Thank you, Mayor.
Wasn't clear to me until now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess this question is really for staff, and it goes to process on change of business, change of ownership, and ultimately utility. When utilities are changed names, it's my understanding, maybe in this particular case, the landlord holds it all and then charges. But even from an electricity standpoint, if there's a change in ownership, that generally triggers a change in occupancy, which would have been done sooner rather than a year plus later. Now, maybe because of COVID and all that, it got behind or it got neglected by CenterPoint, but it's my understanding. So, John or Martin, is in this particular case, I mean, are the utilities then handled by a different entity, or what do you know?
So generally, I would agree with your comments that whenever there's a change of ownership or a change in the utility contracts, that would cue in that role for them to come and visit community development and process the paperwork, so that way we have that change of ownership or change of use. With this one, though, it appears that they just maintained the previous occupancy and then continued moving forward.
Okay, so in this case, I didn't know if it was under the landlord, because a lot of times the landlord just keeps all utilities in their name and then charges, so they don't face these types of things. I guess to me, and I agree, I think somebody stepped in and bought a business, and may or may not have been taken advantage of in the transaction. But when somebody purchases something, it still doesn't keep them away from doing the proper due diligence and buying a business. Part of that due diligence is knowing what is going on around the property, zoning, the use, and all of those kind of things. And again, not that every business owner knows all of that, but ignorance of that isn't necessarily a defense of it. So I agree that the original, foot massage in place, may be one thing. Certainly the full body massage in this particular case, I don't think has gotten over a level of being able to approve it. But I certainly, to Member Orlando's point, if we want to put that on the agenda to talk about removing the CUP altogether, that would be up to council to call for that item. I don't know that that would be necessary to take her livelihood away. I'd like to make sure that she fully understands what she purchased versus what was approved back in December of 19 and those types of things. And so, but with that, it just seemed like to me all of the process went wrong in this particular case. And it sounds like it was set up for failure because of that. So certainly want to do as much as we can for a business owner and a livelihood. At the same time, we have our community to look out for. So any other questions, comments from council? Seeing none, then I will call this public hearing to end. And we will open up new business item number 2. And I'll ask Member Orlando to put that on the table, please.
Consideration and possible action resolution number R 2021-CUP 21-00037. So moved.
We have a motion and a second. We've had staff report. We've heard from the applicant. We've heard from council. Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
Member Orlando?
No.
Member Carbone?
No.
Member Kamkar?
No.
Member Hernandez?
No.
Member Little? No. Member Perez?
No.
Member Owens?
No.
The motion fails 7-0.
All right, moving forward in the agenda to consent agenda. I've not received any items to be removed. Anybody have an item? All right. Yeah. Member Carbone, would you place the consent agenda items on the table? It's items A through L, as in Lima.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action approval of consent agenda items A through L. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Kamkar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Little? Aye. Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
The motion carries 7-0 to approve consent agenda items A through L.
All right, moving forward with new business continued, we have item number 3. Mayor Pro Tem, would you present that one, please?
Yes, Mayor. We have a council discussion for item number 3 on regarding potential drainage bond program, including funding additional operating costs from the general fund.
All right, with that, we'll move to a staff report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And this evening, we've got a package of items that are related, particularly items 3 through 6. And then item 7 is the stormwater fee that we've been talking about in various forms over the last couple of years. But 3 through 6 is really a compilation, the results of the alternate path that was brought forward and discussed at the last council meeting. And so I think they will get intermixed and just recognize that. I would suggest that we try to, in any of the detail, we try to talk about the capital component, which is really 4 and 5. And those relate to a future capital bond program, and that would involve for drainage projects. That would set up 3 different tiers to examine over this summer. And based on the conversations, we suggest that there be a advisory committee that's formed by the council. With item 4, you can form that, and then we can come back at the next meeting and fill out the roster of actual people to be on that. Suggestions: each council member presents 1 member to participate in that, of the community to participate in that. Item 5, if you so see, just to go through that, would be a budget amendment, and that would start the ball rolling for the preliminary engineering reports for those bond projects. We've had good success in prior bond considerations by doing that kind of legwork that scopes out the projects, identifies any unknown issues, and gives us better budgeting purposes. It's not full-on engineering, but certainly does get us a long way towards those capital projects. And so if there is a bond committee with number 4, we suggest that we have that first reading on number 5 of budget amendment to facilitate the PERs on that. And as we've discussed several times, the capital projects are definitely important, but really a big missing chunk of our effort and the gap has been in the maintenance. The pro forma for the drainage fee had an element for that out of that fee. And so this number 6 would take the dollar amounts that were identified in that pro forma and get the council to stipulate that would be one of their highest priorities for the upcoming FY23 budget. The numbers from the pro forma would be $662,000, and then it went up a bit, and the following year, because of another requirement, be $787,000. So this would, council has talked about not if we make improvements on drainage, but that we want to make improvements to drainage. The means to that is what's up for discussion. And so number 7 is the item we've had, in different forms over the last few months, and that's for calling for an advisory referendum in May of 22. I would suggest that if 3, 4, 5, and 6 go well, and we're moving forward on this alternate path, then council can set aside number 7, because that would set us up for an election, a referendum in May of 22, so just a couple months out. The idea is that these other items would take a little bit of a step back, do some of this legwork with the preliminary engineering, form the committee, and get us a long ways towards a wide discussion about drainage projects and how to move forward on that. So I don't know if there's anything else, Mayor, we can clarify for you, but just kind of lay that out there. That's the package of things before you tonight.
And before we move on, we do have several citizens to be heard, and they check 3 through 5 or 3 through 6. So since we're kind of talking and looking at all 4 of these items or 3 of these items together, we're going to go ahead and ask for these citizens' comments to be entered in now.
Okay, we can do that, Mayor. Yeah. And our first speaker this evening is Jim Johnson. And Jim is speaking on behalf of the Pearland Chamber of Commerce. So if we could please get a 5-minute timer up there for Mr. Johnson. Thank you for being with us. Please state your name and address for the record, and I'm sure you know the drill for the rest.
Mayor Pro Tem, I do. You gave me an extra 2 minutes last time, so it helped me a lot with my preparation of remarks. Jim Johnson, I was eating a peppermint, and the timer started. 6117 Broadway Street. Good evening, Council. I'm here once again to follow up on conversations regarding the stormwater fee and proposed bond scope. As a reminder, the Chamber has been here for months discussing this topic, including a town hall with businesses, plus a letter that stated the council needed to potentially delay the stormwater fee to allow proactive business engagement and to do a bond scope. Tonight, you can do just that, delay and do a bond scope. Since the last time I was here at our January meeting, when the fee wasn't delayed, the Chamber surveyed businesses who shared comments that they supplied all expenses for detention or spent $2 million already on retention projects or are still struggling due to COVID. We actually heard from nonprofits who provide opportunities for youth to be displayed on a national level, an organization, the youth go to the national level, and how this profit would take money away from the kids in the league instead of meeting the experiences better. We even heard from churches who have already made significant financial investments, or how can the city consider a tax on a nonprofit organization? We also uncovered that 90% of businesses surveyed, 90% support delaying or not doing the election altogether. We asked about the input because at the last meeting, there was comments that council had said that they had been proactive with business input on the topic. 85% said council needs more input from businesses organization, and 14% still needed information. So if I do 85 plus 14, Councilmember Cargone can help me because he's a CPA. That's 99% of the businesses surveyed needed more information or for the topic to get more input from businesses. Additionally, already 77% support council doing a bond scope, or 18% want more information. But guess what, guys? It is Valentine's Day. To me, this is a special holiday. because it's my son's birthday. He turned 10 today. Hi, he's not going to watch this, but hi, William. Happy birthday from Dad. I feel like one of those people at the Oscars right now, using their time before they get weighed off on the music. But I did want to share that I think this is a special day. So I wanted to get all of council a Valentine. But I thought that wouldn't be appropriate for it to just come for me. So Tony Valley in our office is going to give you our Valentine to you. And she's going to give one each individual. Tony, you can walk up there, just hand them each one. It has their little initials in the side. We don't have time for it to all open it at the same time. But it does say, let's be business friendly and delay the stormwater fee, signed by 90% of the survey's businesses and over 60 businesses you will see listed on that sheet. Those were the ones that allowed me to list their information. And they represent nearly 10,000 jobs in our community, 10,000 jobs, asking you to delay the stormwater fee and continue with your project today to do the bond scope. Again, council, thank you for your time and happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you, and happy Valentine's Day to you too, Jim. Next, Mayor, we've got Don Smith, who will be speaking on behalf of the Bella Vita Board, their residents, so we'll leave the 5-minute timer up there. Thank you, Mr. Smith, for your patience and for being here this evening. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Don Smith. I live at 1502 South Primavera. I am a member of the Board of Directors in Bella Vita, a 55 and over age community, and I am speaking on behalf of the residents of Bella Vita. I speak to you in opposition of the stormwater utility fee resolution as it is currently stated, specifically as it relates to the impervious ground fee for private streets and sidewalks. A person from our board spoke to you at the last council meeting. Subsequently, our board followed up with an email letter to the mayor and the council members expressing our opposition. Thanks to the council members who responded to our letter. Councilmember Owens and Councilmember Orlando both indicated there would be no fee on the ballot, but within the context of a bond package going forward. This, I assume, would ostensibly render the fee a moot point, a desirable alternative. Councilmember Perez stated, and I quote, "The referendum that will make it to the voters does not specifically include or exclude private streets from the impervious calculations. I have personally stated I would be in favor of excluding the impervious cover located within private access and utilities easements whose maintenance is already funded. This exclusion, along with others, would come as part of the ordinance if the voters approve the resolution," end quote. This statement, as I interpret it, sounds like vote for it and we'll tell you what's in it later. To be clear, we are seeking explicit language within the proposition, should it go forward, that specifies private streets and sidewalks such that exist in Bella Vita are to be exempted from the impervious ground fee. As you approach a decision point on the path forward and not knowing the direction you may take, I want to reiterate our rationale for requesting an exemption to the impervious ground fee as it relates to private streets and sidewalks. We are incorporated and regulated by the state of Texas as a not-for-profit corporation and as a 55 and over community. The average age of our residents is more in the range of the mid-70s. We have 618 homes and approximately 1,000 highly motivated, high-turnout voters. Every homeowner in Bella Vita pays all city, county, and school taxes assessed, although we do not receive any city services for maintenance or repairs to our streets and sidewalks in return. Bella Vita's impervious coverage fee for approximately 5 miles of private streets will be in excess of $20,000 annually. Other impervious coverage fees will equate to an additional $3,000 to $4,000 annually. The HOA's entire operational, maintenance, and capital expenses are derived solely from the assessments to our residents. You will be penalizing our homeowners by assessing a residential fee of $5 plus each individual homeowner's share of the additional impervious ground fee. In essence, this equates to double taxation with no additional benefit to our residents. It is apparent Bella Vita was designed and developed with proper water drainage as a high priority. This has been our experience. There was no flooding during Hurricane Harvey as there was in many of our surrounding communities. There is certainly no equitable reason for the distinction of our private streets and those public streets. Planning and passage of this resolution occurred when most of us were locked down during COVID, making it very difficult to effectively communicate with our residents. At this time, we have no choice but to encourage everyone in our subdivision to vote against this resolution if placed on the ballot as written. Currently, we are circulating petitions to give our residents the opportunity to individually express their opposition to the fee. We are informing our residents in our community meetings and through our newsletter and other means available. We may be perceived by some as a limited number of senior citizens living in an isolated enclave within the city, but we are a vibrant neighborhood with 1,000 motivated voters, and our voices will be heard beyond our boundaries. We have friends throughout the city. We have family and children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren within the city. We will use our influence to seek their support in this effort, as well as any other election whereby we have such unity and cohesiveness of cause. In closing, we as the Board of Directors and on behalf of our Bella Vita residents ask your consideration to the following. 1, seek alternative revenue solutions for this project, such as a bond package, and/or 2, postpone the resident vote on the issue until all voices have been given an opportunity to be heard. And 3, under any scenario, remove the inclusion of private streets and sidewalks within the parameters of the impervious coverage as currently defined in the resolution, and include language that specifies private streets and sidewalks are to be exempted from the impervious ground fee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, that concludes our speakers for this particular item.
All right. Thank you very much. So back on item number 3, which is our discussion item before we move into 4, 5, and 6. Open it up to council for any questions, comments. Be heard. Perez?
Stay organized.
Yeah, that's the first time you ever asked me to go first, Trent. Appreciate that, dude.
Well, have you heard yourself talk?
No. You know, going through and looking at this, and you know, we did a bond issue in 2000, 2007, and what have you. I think, you know, if we're going to go through, and I think it's the best way to go is to do it on a bond issue and then put it out there and let the residents vote on it, and go from that way. And would at that same time, we'd be able to see what project's going to be on there and do a PER on those and get a good estimate of cost on those. But one thing I would like to add, you know, that is looking at the drainage. But I think, you know, if we're going to do a bond issue on this, I think we should also kick it up and put some transportation projects and sidewalk projects. You know, as it is right now, and using the general funds on the one we can take money out of to do that on there. And so, and that's, you know, at a point right now, the general fund that we have in there, 70% of that goes in salaries and benefits, so at least it's 30% there. There'll be a discussion on that later on the general fund and how we could help save some money in that area. But I think, you know, this would be a good time if we're going to do it. We need to take a look at the drainage projects that we need on there. That's going to be the best benefit for us. We can't do all of them, but we go in and do the PER, so preliminary engineering on it, come up with a good dollar value and what the project would be. And I think, you know, that's for that to do that. But at the same time, we're looking across the board now, again, looking at the general fund, the money that's there in the general fund that's left over. And as it is, and we're supposed to be putting something like a little over $7 million a year into sidewalks and transportation projects, repairing the roadway and stuff. We're way far from that. We're about at 1.4 million a year in there. So I think this is an opportunity that we should identify some of the roadways that we have here and take a look at those and add them into the bond issue at the same time. So there's a lot of information, a lot of stuff there, and I'll put one additional thing in there too, that I would say that once we do this and we send it out to the residents and they approve it, I think that what we need to do is to bring on a private firm rather than adding the 6 or 7 people and to manage us from the city standpoint. We can do, you know, bring in a firm to manage this on a day-to-day operations, and once it's over, they take their people and leave and go home. And the other way is if we come in and you look at it, and I think the number has been 6 to 7 people that we have to come in to manage it. You know, an engineering person is probably $70,000-$80,000 plus, you know, benefits and everything, and they're here to 10 to 20 years, you know, to retirement, whatever, which comes out to be a lot more money. So I think, you know, not only in this, Mayor, that we really need to go in and take a look at it and do it in the right way on there, if that's what we're going to do, and bring it up and get the preliminary engineering on each one of the projects and come up with a good dollar amount of what that bond issue will be. And the people that in Pearland can take a look at the projects, you know what the projects are, what they're going to be doing, and then vote on it up or down. So I think that's becoming upon the city council, where the other way of the utility, I don't think that would have been, and even though we had a council member put a lot of work in that and actually got us going on this as we're here tonight to talk about it. So whatever we need to do it good, and we need to be transparent, let the people in Pearland vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Perez?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'll say bond versus fee. Personally, I don't think either one of them are bad. I think, you know, what we need to do, what we're doing as a city, is focusing on and understanding that we do have drainage we have significant drainage problems. They probably don't hit every neighborhood equally. I'll acknowledge that. There are some newer subdivisions that are served well by newer infrastructure. Some of the older ones aren't. You know, as a community, we want to contribute to help our neighbors. The reason that I advocated for the fee versus the bond initially is that the fee will allow us to be more proactive as opposed to reactive. Because some of the newer subdivision, that infrastructure will fade, it will begin to deteriorate, and it will need maintenance. And the fee would allow us to have more capability of proactively reacting to that before there's a significant failure. But ultimately, we're talking about, we acknowledge that there's drainage problems. We acknowledge that we need additional funding in order to address those drainage problems. It's just two different mechanisms. There are limitations to the bond, which is why I wouldn't draft it in the first round as a solution to these problems. But if it's the will of council to move forward with the bond, I can be perfectly comfortable with that. I do like the approach that we're discussing, that we have a bond council, we move forward, put an election, don't rush into it, don't just say, hey, let's just put this on the May ballot or November ballot, let's hurry up and get this done. I don't think that that's necessarily the best approach. The fee would just allow us to generate the revenue, and then we could focus on specifically how we're going to allocate that. Even though we had some identifications, it doesn't necessarily need to be part of the ballot language. So we're able to move a little bit more forward with that. I mean, it's not like we just started talking about it. We've been talking about it for 5 years. So, I mean, there was some deliberation about this for some time. But I do recognize the concerns people have. It's not that I don't share those concerns. There's not a perfect solution to this. But I do like where we are as a council. We're no longer arguing or attempting to debate whether or not we need to address this problem. We're just debating on generally how we're going to fund it. So my wish for council and what I would hope is that if we want to I think it's fair if we put the bond, if we're putting the bond as a list of an option, something that was not previously discussed in any of the other council meetings prior to or leading up to putting the fee on the ballot. If we're going to go with, or not to this extent, I guess. Member Carbone had brought this up in the past, but if we're going to go with that an option, I think it's fair to say let's postpone for May. Let's see either or which option works. I would say that, and I will not have a say in this after May, as I'm term limited, but I would say I would like council to keep the option open of either or. So if we delay for May, we don't resolve to never explore the fee as an option, as an alternative to the bond. We just say we're going to explore the bond, and if as a council we decide the bond is the best option, we put out on the ballot. if the council, which succeeds mine and Member Little's time here, decides that they think the fee allows us more flexibility, then I think we leave that option open. But I think the timing of that should be no sooner than May 23. I would not propose we do anything in a November ballot, particularly in a gubernatorial year, because it's very difficult for us to communicate what we're attempting to communicate to the citizenry when we get lost in some of the political, the national political nonsense or the state level political nonsense. So that's all I have, probably for the next few items, Mayor.
Yeah, I'm not termed out, but I'm done 5 years. I've done my service, but and I won't be around after May. But I've been outspoken against the stormwater fee since it first surfaced. Everyone I've talked to, including citizens and then the businesses spoke tonight with their lovely Valentine, they're all against it. Not a single person has told me that they're for the stormwater fee. So I won't be for putting it on the ballot. I agree with Councilman Owens. Put it on the ballot. Let the citizens decide. It's their money. And I completely agree with the gentleman from Bella Vita. I live in a private neighborhood. It's not going to benefit us, but it's going to cost us. So it's a little self-serving, but we have 17 residents, not 683 or whatever the number was. But that's kind of where I'm coming from, and I'll be brief. Next.
Cam Carr. Yes, sir. For the staff, can we pull up the memo attached to item 3 so I can cover a couple of things? And then I want to take some time, thank the folks at BD4, Mr. Gennaro, Commissioners Roger, Brennan, and Mooney have been steadfast on working on drainage items in our area, and I'm deeply appreciative for some of them being out this evening. So, John, I may have something for you at the podium a little bit. Give me 3 minutes. Can we?
He's taking 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah, gum. I know. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Let me pull this up. Can we pull down the under solutions parameter? I've got some questions for Mr. Upton. Keep going. All right, there we go. Let's stop right there. Well, you wrote this memorandum. I'm guessing this is in conjunction with the team. The solution parameter, you said in bold, for the success in the future, new dollars and additional annual investment are needed for both capital and operating. Can I just get some context here? Are we making enough investments right now to maintain the system that we have?
So we believe there is a gap we identified and have talked about, and I'll say now what does ask the mayor if I could say at the end, but we talk about the capital projects and those are important, but we can't lose track of the need for the maintenance operation component as well. And that's what that item 6 is trying to set up, is for the next fiscal year to commit new additional dollars to meet that gap. So yes.
So whether you've already built out or not, we need to do more just to maintain what we have, even though it's probably not adequate enough.
We need to do more, to have more resources to maintain what we have now, to stay ahead, to be proactive instead of reactive. And there's going to be more requirements that are put on the city in next year, 2 years. So all of that's true, yes.
Okay. Can we go to the 2 pages down for the Harris County Flood Control? It's right below. There you go, right there. Can you guys expound on what this means here in the bold?
I'll let Trent and Robert talk about that.
I'll read it out loud and then I'll give you a minute. Harris County Flood Control District is still in the review process for the drainage study and working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to receive approval for the Clear Creek Federal Project. So I'm assuming, Mr. Upton, we've got stuff that we can do now as part of projects in the pipeline, but then at some point, once this review is done, I'm assuming there'll be more for us to do.
Well, in regards to the Harris County Flood Control, there's 2 parts to answer your question. One is there's always things we can do on the drainage side. 2, on Harris County Flood Control, this was an update from them to basically state that they're still in the process of getting their approvals to even go forward with their design and then continue moving forward with the federally funded project.
Can we scroll to item number 4 here? This item in the bold. I'll read this out loud, and I just want to be prepared here. The city has to be prepared for adopting Atlas 14 and remapping of the floodplain area within the city's jurisdiction using 2D dimensional hydraulic analysis consistent with MAP project next. What is Atlas 14? Just for edification here, what is the big difference between that, where we are today and where we need to go?
Councilman Kamkar, as we mentioned before, as well as Atlas 14 is the new rainfall rate that has been provided by NOAA. And with that, it shows a delta difference between what the TSARP was, or that one being the Tropical Storm Allison rainfall, with regards to where we are today. And at 100-year floodplain, at 100-year rain events, about 4-inch increase.
Okay. So in theory, everything that's built before Atlas 14, which in this case is Hurricane Harvey, more or less, is inadequate as compared to this new standard. Is that an accurate assessment? Just from a rainfall, 24-hour, 100-year event?
It's not as simple as that, Councilman Kamkar. Those items that were designed per our guidance and infrastructure, so for example, the area of Shadow Creek Ranch was designed under the standards we have in place today and previous, and fared well with regards to Harvey. Those areas, unfortunately, that were developed in the 60s and 70s are still having issues and will continue to have issues.
Okay. But that standard's moving, is what it sounds like.
Drainage is always looked at, and standards do move.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to explicate some of this. This is changing. We're moving. We have to move with it. We have to evolve with it. I am deeply, deeply, deeply happy that the Pearland Chamber has started to get involved in the last few months. The ISD is starting to get involved. The folks at Belvita are here and they're engaged on this issue. But when you see all of this, and we've been talking about this for probably half a decade now, essentially post-Harvey, and now we're really moving on this, this is changing. And the thing that I have been really, really happy with is there's not a member on this council that says, do we change or do we evolve or not? It's a matter of how do we spend it and how fast do we spend it. We have to evolve. There's a unanimity that we have to do more than what we're doing today. We don't even have enough money to maintain what we have today, and it is not evolving to the standard that we needed to at Atlas 14. So I'm excited that we're moving on this. We have beat each other up pretty aggressively. We have heard, and I hope that gets back to the residents and the businesses. We have listened. We have taken our abuse. We've been called bums and idiots, me the most. And I welcome those comments, but I think we're getting to a better place, and we are trying to address, nothing is going to be perfect, especially in public service. Nothing is. Nothing takes care of everything, but we are evolving to be at a better place. Can we scroll down to the very bottom of this? There we go. This is the one I want to talk about. So do we have a cursor? Okay, it's hard to see. Where is the fee amount for on this? It's the $60 here in like the lower left. And if we start sizing this bond issue, mom and dad, Velveeta folks, everybody else are paying $60 a month. And depending on how we size this bond issue is going to be $12 or $14 or $17 on a $250,000 homestead. I know if people are going to be higher than that, people are going to be lower than that. Some people might be at that number, but you have to draw the line somewhere. For the businesses and the residents, guess what? You're not falling in this rubric very cleanly. But for mom and dad, what you're paying will be less if we actually go do some of these projects under this standard. In some cases, you're doing what is 17 over 60? I'm an Aggie. That's like 1/3. There we go, 1/3. So you had to go a little slower. 1/3. So we're talking 1/3 less, but we're getting projects going. That's a hell of a lot better than what we're doing now, which is we're not maintaining enough and we're not doing what we need to be doing. So can we scroll back up to the projects list really quickly? Where's the proposed? There we go. Keep going down to the bottom. The one that I want to highlight for the BD4 team is I would really like us to focus on the aggressive posture. That 28 million, is that 28 million at the very bottom there, second to the bottom? That 28 million is dollars that we can directly do partnership stuff with BD4. We need to get some of those projects that we can do with them going and in the can. We got to show up with our money. They got their money. But the more aggressive, bigger bond package, if it's only $17 as compared to 60, and we can start getting some projects going with those guys, we need to advocate and go that direction. The gentleman here talked about grandparents, grandkids, parents, businesses. This is going to protect parents, grandparents, kids, our businesses, our schools. We got to do some of this stuff. So I'm very excited. I'm excited to work with the BD4 folks. I'm excited the staff is going to get what they need. I'm going to be supportive on the next 4 items, and I'm thankful for the council working very hard on this. And the mayor's leadership on this has been phenomenal. He has called me an idiot more than once, but we have found a way to get there together, and I'm very excited about that.
That was a cleaned up version. I appreciate that.
Oh, no, there was there's a lot of stuff there.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I have put in the time, I guess, to talk to staff a little bit more about this and the difference between where the fee would get us versus going the route of the bond and making these, I guess, like a better word, a down payment towards getting some of these projects off the ground, which, you know, looking at item number 6, seems like it would do more faster, probably. So I've kind of come around on that. I'll say that to Member Owen's point earlier, you know, one of the things that I do want to focus on as we move forward is trying to really build in as many guardrails as we can to protect the funding that we do allocate as a council. And moving forward, kind of build some of that in, because I want to avoid scope creep wherever we can on this. I think we've identified, at the last planning and zoning meeting, I remember I was watching the live feed, as I'm sure all of you were, and there was a lady that came up, but I can't remember which item it was, but she said, you know, our property's flooded 6 or 7 times in the last couple of years. So I think it's, you know, it's really, it is an issue, and there are people in the city who may not live in some of these newer neighborhoods that really do need us to move forward and be aggressive, and not just be aggressive now, but I think be aggressive over the next, you know, 5-10-year landscape, something like that. So with that, you know, we could talk about those, to Member Little's points earlier about, you know, he talked to a lot of people and no one seemed to be for the fee. And as I, you know, started to talk through this and kind of better understand some of our alternatives that we had on the table, I can see where there may be, you know, better pathways forward. But also, you know, I don't want to just say that it's bad because people think it's bad. I think, you know, we're putting in the work up here to come up with the best option that we possibly can to get the projects moving forward. And so that's why I think, you know, continuing the discussion, we talked about guardrails with the fee, but I think we should also examine what guardrails we can put forward, whether it's setting up internal service funds, or I don't know if there's any benefit to actually still creating a utility with our stormwater system. But I would like to continue those conversations, and I am very thankful for, you know, Jim and all of the residents that reached out, business owners and so forth, that did give their input, because I think it did drive the conversation and, you know, show us whatever avenues we had available. And I think we've come to a really good, clean pathway forward. And I also wanted to thank staff for, you know, holding our hand through this process and really putting in the work. This is a lot. What we've been presented here, if you have a chance to look at this memo, it's really very detailed, and I think gives a very clear explanation of, you know, what the fee would bring versus bonds and the different variations of the bond that we'd put forward. So I think I'm okay with moving forward, like I said, with this down payment concept, putting the bond council together. And I'm glad that we as a council have decided to get tough on drainage finally. So not finally, but, you know, moving forward to be more aggressive than we have been. So that's all I've got, Mayor. Thank you.
Good deal. Member Carbone? Glad there's a change in tone up here. Sounds like we've got a consensus. Thank you for the chamber and all the business owners and citizens to come out and apply some pressure. And I look forward to getting this rolling.
All right. Member Orlando? Yeah, 2 quick things. This is going to be a great step forward on a really important issue, and I think we got to a good place through a lot of discussion. I think we can all be proud of that. Second, just want to emphasize the point that our city manager made earlier, that it's fun and everybody likes to high five and do a ribbon cutting when we build big new projects. But something that's just as important is taking care of the stuff that we already built. And it's not as sexy and you don't get the credit for it, but whether that's our drainage infrastructure, whether that's our streets and sidewalks, whether that's our fleet or these buildings that we're all in, that has to be a huge priority, especially as we continue to age as a city. And I think we need to be focusing on that for drainage and for everything else.
Good comments, and I'll round it out. Sounds like we've got a great path forward here. Since we have residents here tonight, I always want to make sure that we kind of explain how, maintenance, and remember Orlando just said it, drainage isn't sexy. It's not shiny. It's not something necessarily new. It's not the fire chief with a brand new, fire truck that's shiny and whistles blowing and all of that kind of thing. But when the storm is bearing down, we want to make sure that our drainage works. And in fact, the enhanced drainage that we keep talking about, and we'll talk about that under item number 6. The enhanced drainage, I want to make sure that our citizens are aware we do maintenance of drainage currently. What this is enhanced drainage, doing more, okay? When you see for example, right now, when you see a storm pipe, we're not necessarily looking and snaking and cleaning that storm pipe out every X years, whatever X is going to be, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. We wait until there's a problem, and then we go in and have to do something about it. We have maintenance in other areas that we actually do. Also want to make sure, as mentioned, our representatives from the Drainage District are here, because a lot of people talk about, well, we have the Drainage District. What are they doing? There are defined roles in what people do in drainage. We have Bella Vita here as an HOA. Don Smith is a great example of, you have a detention pond and you have certain things within your subdivision that you handle that are drainage related. You maintain. If your pond fails or you have an issue with that pond, I live in an HOA, and if our pond fails, in fact, we're facing a pond with needed maintenance, big maintenance tickets. Our residents are going to fix that. You then move to the right-of-way, the ditch, the culvert, and those types of things that are out here where the water comes and leaves the subdivision and goes into the right-of-ways, the roadsides. That's the city's, for the most part, that's the city's responsibility. You then move to the creeks and the large tributaries, and that's going to be a DD4 responsibility. So there are defined responsibilities along the way, and we, the city, need to make sure that we're handling ours in a proper fashion. I've said this, and like I said, I liken it to just routine maintenance on a house, routine maintenance on your car. It is not fun to replace a roof on your house. You go spend $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 on the roof of the house, and you didn't even change the look of your house. But when it rains, the storm comes, you know that it's there to protect you. Same thing, I had a brake job done on my truck here about 4 weeks ago, and yay me, I got to write a check. But yay me, my truck stops. So those are the types of things. That's drilling it down to kitchen table politics as I talk about it. Certainly we're not spending these kind of monies on a home, or we're not spending these kind of monies on a vehicle, but it's the nuts and bolts of it. It's really and truly, these are things that we need to do to maintain and make sure that we have a good, clean drainage system. As been discussed, it's not, do we do drainage, yes or no? The answer is yes. Ultimately, it's how much, how far, how much do we get for this? What's the impact to the resident and the individual taxpayer? So really and truly, this approach puts our citizens at the table, puts our businesses and puts our citizens a seat at the table. It is real important to me as your mayor to make sure that our citizens are, number one, heard, but also have that seat at the table to take shape with the policies that we do. We've done that with our water utility and utility billing. We've done that with short-term rentals. and here we are embarking on one for drainage. So I think it's real important that we have that engagement. So I'm really proud of where our council has come over the last month in getting this focused. I am proud of this council for bringing drainage to the forefront. And the sooner we can get moving, the better we're going to be. I do agree that we don't want to shortchange the PER process, doing that preliminary engineering report. It's very important that we do that so we know each one of these projects, if there's any fatal flaws that may happen in a project. We want to know that now, not once we're under construction. So we can handle it now a lot easier and a lot better than after. So thank you all for bearing with us as we go through this. I'm hoping, and I'm going to kick it to Clay here in just a second, but I'm hoping we'll go through each one of these for council's edification when we get to item number 7, assuming 4, 5, and 6 are, as we've stated. I'm just going to simply ask that we pass that on, and in other words, we won't even address the agenda item. It'll just pass on. So with that, I like I said, we've talked and we've come to, I think, a milestone in consensus building, and so I appreciate each one of you for your attention to all this, the severity of it. It is important. It's important for all of us. So with that, Clay?
Just to amplify, there was talked a couple of times about setting up a utility fund, not a fee, just so we can identify that closer, akin to the infrastructure fund that we've been using the last couple of years. As was mentioned in one of these agenda items, we do agree, and we're setting that up now. So I think it'll make it easier for all of us to identify and budget and say what we're spending on drainage. It's a little bit, it's just a function within Public Works. And so that will happen with your FY23 budget as I'll present it. And then also just, I want to echo what Member Hernandez said and echo for the staff. I think the extra week helped a lot, but what's presented, and I think that table is a good example of that thanks for Robert and Trent and Raj and everybody at Rasika who worked on that, and Amy to tee that up so you could have some good information for tonight. Thank you.
All right, good deal. So with that, we'll move to, I don't see any other questions or comments. We'll move to item number 4. Mayor Pro Tem, if you'll present that one for consideration.
Yes, sir, Mayor. Consideration and possible action. Resolution number R2022-37. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report on the advisory committee.
So this is a resolution setting up the structure for that committee and the membership thereof. And if you want to change the composition, not of people, but of roles and so forth, this would be time to amend and adopt that. But we suggest that between now and the next meeting, if you adopt the structure tonight, the next meeting you come back and you populate that with actual members. Okay. Do you want me to go into the charge of the group or anything like that? It's in there, so.
I mean, it's in here. If somebody has a question about it, we can ask. With that, remember, Camcar, I think, has
Can we pull up the memorandum on the ordinance side of it? I want to make 2 friendly amendments. Last page.
Is this the exhibit? Oh, exhibit.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to make a motion for a simple majority as opposed to 14 and 19 to adopt the recommendations. The committee shall conduct a vote on the recommendations provided to the City Council. An affirmative vote of 14 committee members shall be required to adopt committee recommendations. I just want to go simple majority. So I'd like to make a motion for that.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion, and I guess if you have a second one, let's work them one at a time.
Yeah, and then the only other one, and I don't.
They don't get messed.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Just real quickly, that we have mandatory 2 meetings a month. I'd like to have a meeting east of 35, maybe at the West Side Event Center, and then maybe one at the new library or west of 288.
Right.
At least one of those. That way, folks can say, "We came to your neighborhood.
Okay.
Here are some of the projects we were looking at." I think that would be there. I don't know if we need to write that into this or amend that in there, Darren, but
it's known, right?
I mean,
So I guess we have a motion and a second to
That's all.
amend. Yeah, a motion to amend, and that is under recommendations for voting, instead of having a 14 committee members affirmative vote, to have a simple majority. So, and is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, do we have questions, comments, concern on that amendment? We'll talk about the other amendment in just a second.
Just say 14 of 19, I did the calculation, that's like 73.6%. That just seems like kind of high and also kind of arbitrary, so I'm receptive to lowering that.
Can you clarify, was that simple majority of the committee members or simple majority of the committee members present?
Simple majority of the 19. So in that case, would that be 11?
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, so you're saying of the 19 total, but not, what if they're not all 19 there? Does it impact?
I'm open, but I just,
okay.
I'm open to whatever.
I was just for clarity, just trying to find what you're.
So I think we do need to point out, is it the total 19, if you've got a quorum present, but yet, is it a majority of those present, or is it a majority of simple majority of the 19? I think we do need to clarify that. Darren, if I can see you already wheels turning on that.
Yes, and what I mean, if right now, even our charter addresses that, and it talks about those present and voting, and there are certain instances where it requires, based on the entire body regardless, but those are very narrow circumstances. And so it would be better to clarify what the council's intent here is, because otherwise what you could have is a meeting with 11 or 12 members show up, but then that means you almost have 100% vote of those that are present. And so if you would want to have a simple majority, you may want to include those present.
And I'm going to say, I don't have a problem with moving off of the 14, the 73%, as Member Orlando talked about. I do think it's important, we did this with the UB committee, making sure that we have more than just a simple majority, because we're truly talking about consensus building. And so if this committee isn't really truly all on board with a really a bigger consensus, then it will be felt in the community as well. And again, I'm open to lowering it from the 73. Maybe it's a 60% number, 65%, or some number that's lower than the 73. But I think it is important that you build a real true consensus, not just a simple majority.
I was going to say the same thing, Mayor. I mean, I'd be fine with a 2/3 majority, or if we want to lower the bar mathematically because it sounds better, I'm fine. What we want with most of these committees, not just unique to this, we want the committees to come to us with what they truly, as a group, believe this is what we can all get behind. If we have a simple majority, particularly on several of these projects, if they're that controversial that we can only get one additional member over half, then we're probably not going in the direction that we would feel comfortable with. I think the 2/3. I agree that not adding the specific numbers, but say we do 2/3 or whatever. If we want to say it's not a simple majority, but 60% or 70%, I think 2/3 is fine if we want to make that change. But I wouldn't agree with the simple majority. I think that's narrowing the margins a bit too much.
Madam President, there's also an attendance item. It's hard to get 19 people to do anything, but it's hard to get 7 people for the council, to all get here. There's members that have different business obligations, personal obligations.
Sure.
Let's call it 60% of those present.
Yeah,
that's where I was going to go.
That's the
2/3
middle ground.
of present, and
it needs to be the one establish a quorum. It needs to be those present. We have historically not had issues getting committees to work together and come to consensus. Typically, they don't present items. They don't present items the same way we do. We present them ready for approval. They're going to present something that I think that they've already vetted and discussed, and they're ready to move forward with. Yeah. We've never had the problem with any of the committees we've had in the past. I don't forecast that would be the issue here.
Can I amend my motion?
Sure.
You can withdraw, and then we can just make a new motion.
Withdraw.
Yeah.
Let's withdraw, and then we'll see.
Darren, I'd like to withdraw my motion.
Okay.
So
you want to?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and we'll rewind this back. I'd like to amend the language, an affirmative vote of 60% of the committee members present, or assuming a quorum.
Yeah.
60% of the members assuming a quorum.
Darren, we have a motion, a second. Darren, do you have any cleanup on that? Your mic.
We establish what a quorum.
It doesn't establish what a quorum is because this group is not obviously going to be subject to TOMA. It's an advisory committee to the city council, but it doesn't establish a quorum, so we don't know what that number is going to be.
But it's 60% of.
Right, but what I'm saying is,
What would a normal quorum of 19 be? 11, 10?
Generally, you'd be looking at around 10.
The same rules that we apply to the council. Can we do that?
So yes, the council is well, I guess we just recently changed it. I know the number is we need 5 total to be able to to meeting. Are you referring to a percentage, or are you referring
so
to
60% of 5/8.
Okay, let's do that.
Yes, it's this fun doing it. It's this fun.
We're definitely in the weeds.
11.8, so it's 12 members.
There.
It's 11.875 is 5/8 of 19, so that's 12 people.
12.
Quorum is 12.
You want to do quorum is 12? Would you like
Quorum is
to
12.
amend it to include that?
And that's only if they're voting on something. Doesn't mean that
Correct.
they can't meet and have discussion to meetings and all that stuff. We're only if we're voting.
No.
You good? Yes. So the amended motion is to, on the affirmative vote, to be 60% of committee members present and voting, and that votes will adhere to a quorum of 12 members.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from council on that? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we call for the vote.
Will that motion not include meeting at least twice a month? That was
haven't gotten
mentioned
there yet.
before.
We'll do that. We'll do
Separate
that
issue, we haven't gotten there.
Do that separately.
Want to keep them separate.
Member Kamkar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Little? Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens? Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
The motion carries 7-0 to amend resolution number R 2022-37.
And then if you have a second amendment,
To clarify, if we want to specify locations of meetings, is that something that we need to have in this, or is that just something that we operationally do?
Traditionally, that would be something that would be done operationally. When they have their first meeting, that's an issue that can be discussed with the committee members, and then they can establish their future meetings at those locations.
Trent, Robert, is that difficult for us to do a meeting offsite?
Councilman Kamkar, we can do that with
I'm good
West,
then, yeah.
West Pearland Library up and running.
so we have an amended, we have an amended motion on the table. Any other questions, comments?
What was the motion? What was the amendment?
He didn't move forward with it. Yeah. We just have the one amendment, and that's the one we just voted on. So we have an amended motion. So Madam Secretary, we're calling for the vote on the motion as amended.
As amended. Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Little? Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Kamkar?
Aye.
The motion carries 7-0 to adopt resolution R 2022-37 as amended.
All right. Mr. Kamkar, if you would present 5.
Yes, Mayor. Consideration possible action, first reading of ordinance number 1605-3, so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report.
So this is a limited budget amendment for the current fiscal year, first reading, and this would put the $655,000 into the budget for expenditure. It would go through our normal procurement process, but this would provide the monies for those PERs, and that's that first large group of the projects around that table you looked at earlier. Nothing to add.
All right. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Kamkar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Little? Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
The motion carries 7-0 to approve the first reading of ordinance number 1605-3.
Member Little, if you would present 6, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action resolution number R 2022-39. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report.
And this is a resolution of intent for our future upcoming FY23 budget that goes into effect in October. And the intent would be to make clear that the councils would be budgeting additional new monies into our budget for, and it says general fund here. You know, as I said earlier, we're really talking about creating this internal service fund, but that's neither here nor there. That would meet that gap that was identified in the pro forma discussions for the stormwater fee, but do that with other means, not the stormwater fee in the upcoming budget. That would be your second highest priority under what we presented. The first being what we all also promised, and that is to finish the classic comp implementation. So,
Classic comp. All right. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, Mayor, if I could real quickly, maybe Trent or Robert, just on the increase, I did have one person ask me what that was. And so I know we talked a little bit about the new MS4 requirements, things like that. Can you just really briefly scratch the surface of what some of those additional requirements are going to be and what triggers those?
Councilman Hernandez, I just want to clarify, you're talking about the future requirements that we'll have in our MS4 permit now that we've reached and certified over 100,000 people?
Yes, the additional 125.
So, the additional 125 would be our staff member associated with drainage. We would look to bring an associate engineer that would be monitoring and looking through the permit requirements and sampling and testing as required by that MS4.
Okay. And can you just, what is MS4? Just again, for general consumption, remember, it's got to be
I know,
non-engineering.
I'm sorry. Municipal sanitary stormwater permit. I'm missing an S in there. There's system
Sure.
permit.
So as the city grows, we get additional requirements that are placed on us by the state. And so we have to obviously bring on additional, staff and testing and all sorts of different components for that system. Is that correct?
Yes, those continue as unfunded mandates that are required to be done to meet that.
I was going to ask, is this a state requirement or a federal requirement?
It goes through the state.
State requirement. So this, yeah, I was going to bring that up because we have the opportunity and we have citizens present and it's voting time at the ballot box.
Yeah.
This is an unfunded mandate by the state. So they're requiring it. We have to pay for it. We don't get the option to opt out of it. So it's an unfunded mandate that we have to pay for. Just want to make sure that you're aware we do have unfunded mandates. So, any other questions, comments?
I've got a very brief one. Can we type on the page 2 of the memo under this item? Page 2. This is actually it. The goal of the division is to establish a holistic program approach to the maintenance of the drainage infrastructure. I just want to say, is it possible that we can bring this back 2, 3, 4 months later, just to have an overview of what is that program going to end up looking like? This is saying that this is aspirational, what we're going to do. The staff can tell us when they want to do it. I just like to bring this back at a later date, just so we're putting more dollars in there. What does that shape of the maintenance program look like? That's all.
We'll have an early budget input session in May, June, probably in June. That meets your
I just want to talk about what the makeup of the program will look later on. I'm not going to quibble right now about any of that. So,
Oh, that's good. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote. Member Carbone did.
Member Little? Aye. Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens?
Aye.
Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Kamkar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
The motion carries 6-0 to adopt resolution number R 2022-39.
All right, moving to item number 7, I guess my question would be if there's no opposition to it, we could just, basically we remove this agenda item altogether.
Yeah, if the council would like to just pass the item and move to the next agenda item, then that's an option that the council has available, as long as there's no objections.
I think maybe for the benefit of the audience, what we're saying is that if we take no item, then there's not going to be an election for the fee.
That's what that's where I was going to follow up. If we take no action, there would be no election in May for the stormwater utility fee. And the way it's presented here, either we have to call the election or we don't call the election with the votes. We can't amend or change or do anything with this action item the way it is, if I understand legal properly. So since we've just done what we've completed in the previous actions, it would make sense to simply pass this over altogether. And when I say pass it, we're not talking about putting it into place. We're talking about passing it on the agenda.
And just to clarify, tonight would be the last night that the council would be able to call that election. And so by default, by passing it, then that election would not occur. Yes.
Okay. I don't see any objections, so we'll move to item number 8. Member Perez, would you present it?
Surely, Mayor, consideration of possible action, second and final reading of ordinance number 2000T-36. So move.
Second.
Staff report.
Sure thing, Mayor. So this is, it'll be on in just a moment. This is the second reading for the amendments to the Unified Development Code. As discussed, these amendments take into effect for alternative financial services, vape, smoke, tobacco, or head shop, mini warehouse self-storage, and then the CBD retail, and then some other staff items, including the studio or learning center dwelling quadruplex, and the auto glass interior versus exterior discussions. We made the amendments that were discussed in the first reading to scratch out or to strike through the distance requirements that were in place within the council recommended and P&Z recommended items, and then made similar modifications to the CBD retail, just that way we kept both sets of regulations parallel to each other to help staff. We included a set of maps in the staff packet. These maps indicate the current zoning districts where those uses would be allowed. So we included the GC map just to discuss the CBD stores, and then the M2 map specifically to discuss the other uses, the alternative financial, the mini warehouse, and so on. So specifically, we'll take a quick deep dive into one of the GC maps. We have outlined the buffers that were included, and then the places that are highlighted in red are the remaining places that are outside of those buffers. So a business would need to be outside of or inside the red in order to be outside of the buffers and to then be allowed to apply for a conditional use permit. Moving over to the heavy industrial side, you can see that we included the same buffers, and you can see within the staff packet where those potential areas for a business to locate in and request for a conditional use permit. With that said, I will hand it back to you, Mayor.
All right. With that, we'll move to questions, comments, concerns from council. I'll start with Member Orlando. This was your item, so I want to make sure I put you out there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I just want to say thank you to staff, and especially thank you to the Planning and Zoning Committee that reviewed this over several meetings. I think it was made better, the original proposal, by everyone's input, first on the Planning and Zoning Committee and then by everyone up here on the dais. So I think this is a really good proposal that's going to be a huge step forward towards a Pearland that we can be even more proud of. That's going to improve the quality of life for folks and also, just make this a safer and more desirable city. So good work all around, and appreciate all the effort on this.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from council?
Just a couple of clarifications. So we, for the amendment, we are allowing self-storage in all the existing zones, all with conditional use permits. That's still in there. And just on the buffers, just to make sure there's complete understanding, the buffers are just for the uses that were previously stated on page 23 of 31 So vape shops, financial services, mini stores. Are we saying that, just making sure that I understand, are we saying that like if the zoning is there for a vape shop, other than in these areas, that's the only place that a vape shop can go, correct?
Councilmember Perez, yes. So in order for tomorrow, assuming this passes, in order for a vape, smoke, tobacco, or head shop to be something that can gain a conditional use permit, it would need to have those regulations specific to use based on the location and be within one of those areas.
Again, it's not everything in that zone that would require a conditional use permit is not subject to because the exhibit is not as clear that it's only references these particular uses. But I would say, I would be okay with the vape shop. I don't know if the alternative financial services or mini stores needs to be buffered as such with the conditional use permit already in place.
And if I could clarify the amendments also, I think it might have been a little unclear. Per the amendment last time, we removed the prohibition on self-storage from just being specifically an M2. Right. That was taken out. So that was taken out. And then I didn't hear it, but I wanted to clarify that we made the change related to if you sell any vapes, that will require a CUP, regardless if it's a significant amount.
Correct.
Is that correct? But yeah, just wanted to clarify for Member Perez, because I think that might have been a little confusing that we're not restricting self-storage to M2. That was stricken as of the amendment made at the last meeting.
Yeah, I get that. The one I'm wholly with you on the vape shops. I think that there's some argument to be made there. It's not really what we want in the city per se. It is. I would still establish it's still a legal business. They still are. They're not doing anything illegal. So I don't want to. What I'm concerned with generally is certainly they're not popular. Certainly there are people who are against those. But we don't want to make legitimate business owners have to jump through so many hoops that it's impossible for them to decipher without an expensive consultant to just determine can they even place it there. I think the purpose generally of this is to chill the activity of vape shops, which this will inherently do. I don't know if I'm there with financial services because, I certainly understand predatory lending is a concern. I don't know if its location is specifically a negative component to the city. Vape shops certainly have an unattractive look. Certainly, some people don't like the look of liquor stores, certain other businesses, but predatory lending can go into any location. So I don't know if geographically affecting it is necessarily something that is beneficial to the city. I'm not going to offer an amendment. I'm just throwing that out there. I think my concern is that if we start getting to, I'll just say this, and this goes into a theme of what I'm talking about with staff. We don't want to get into the position as a council where we're getting so opinionated and so restrictive about what we do and do not allow that is impossible for people to do business with us. Certainly, we want to restrict. If we want to restrict vape shops, and that's a move we want to go with, that's fine. But then we start picking and choosing the businesses that we like and we don't like. Massage parlors are certainly a legitimate business, and they have some negative association. So we chill all that activity. We chill all financial services, or what we've deemed alternative financial services. Then we've chilled self-storage. Then we've chilled vape shops, which is again a legal business, and we're trying to chill. Or some of us with whose name starts with a W would like to chill liquor stores. It becomes a very difficult place for us to do business. I don't want us. I'm okay with the amendment. I'm not going to with the issue. I'm just trying to say, let's be cautious with how far we extend this. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves about how many businesses we just want to say as a council we just don't like it, so we're just not going to let you do it. When there's still people out there that are trying to make a living, trying to feed their family. We may not necessarily borrow their path, We may not necessarily want to do business as they do business, but if it's not illegal and we can put some boundaries on it, let's not continue the trend of constantly trying to preemptively regulate things that we may not necessarily care for. That's my only comment, Mayor.
Martin, I was confused with those diagrams. Can you just pull them up, the one with the red and the crosshatch? Okay, yeah, we can stop. That's fine. So the crosshatch means they need to, with this second hearing, assuming it passes, those areas can't be a vape shop without a CUP, right? That's essentially.
Correct. So what we were showing with this map is an identification of all of the churches, daycares, schools that would cause a buffer. Additionally, the corridor overlay district roadways that would cause a buffer as discussed within the regulation specific use.
I got red means don't do it. Green means do it. And I just saw the red.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's great. I just want to make sure I understand what the hell's going on. Okay. So, all right. Member Prez and I have a difference of opinion. Surprise. I think a home rule city deserves to rule, and the residents of that and their elected officials deserves to weigh in on the uses in that city. I don't believe in capitalism at all costs or capitalism no matter what. Cities have certain things that they would like in it, and cities have things that they would not like in it. Vape shop and massage parlor is just not high on my list, but that's me. I'm one of 7 people. I appreciate the hard work on this effort. The staff has worked exceptionally hard on this effort. The council has worked hard on this effort. And I'm super thankful that we have thoughtful folks who are trying to make the place better.
Good comments. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, Mayor. I was, as Member Perez was speaking, I went onto our new tool that we have, which the name eludes me, but it's the zone checking tool. John.
Open Counter.
Open Counter. That's right. There we go. I went onto Open Counter and I typed in, I want to open a vape shop, and boom, popped up a map with all the zoning, showed me where I couldn't open, asked if it was already existing, whatnot. But I had nowhere to go. I happened to know that it was under community development. Is there some way, if we move forward with this, and I'm assuming we're going to update Open Counter to show all of this new stuff, but even if we don't pass this tonight, is there some way to put that link also under either the business drop down or the I want to drop down, just to make it easier for people to say business, where can I open a business, or I want to open a business? Try to create that funnel for people a little bit easier.
Appreciate the comments, Councilmember Hernandez. We'll take it and run with it.
Okay, awesome. That's all I've got, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, good deal. Any other questions, comments? All right. The only comment that I have, I like kind of where this is going. You're right. We as a community can decide. I just want to make sure unintended consequences, right? I want to make sure for the record that we did talk about, vape shops going in an M2, a lot of M2 directly across the street from Pearland High School, and just want to make sure that we don't have an unintended consequence 4, 5, 6, 10 years down the road if all of a sudden we have some type of a warehouse complex and a vape shop comes in and wants to locate, on the backside over there, because what could go wrong with a bunch of kids and vape shop in the middle of the night. So just want to make sure that we are aware of unintended consequences. And again, I think the work on this has been good. Certainly, these are issues that we get hit with often, and certainly we'll send the message. So that's all I've got. Any other questions, comments? I talked too long.
You thought so?
Made him think something.
No, you took up all the time, Trent. Yeah, a lot of these on here, and it's not trying to get anybody to run out of business or anything, but I mean, it's like the e-cigarettes, and you go on Pearland Parkway and you get the Shell station, you get the cigarettes, e-cigarettes, and you can get the cigars. You go 50 feet, Exxon, you get the same thing. You go 75 feet, and you got another shop down there to get all the paraphernalia that you need. But I think, on a lot of it, and of course, I'll continue to go on the liquor stores. But I mean, how many do we want in this area? How many do you want in that area? It's like you go down 518 over here, and the warehouse is over. You got one within 50 feet of the other, with a bigger one. On there. I mean, it's just on and on and on. And I think, there's a better use of the land that we have here and different businesses to come in. And so, that's my concern about it. I have no problem with any of these people or, that has these stores or what have you. But I think, Pearland's better than that, I think we got, good businesses here and certainly want to see them grow. But, if we continue to do this and along through here and not take any time to sit down and take a look at it like it's been done right now, 518, that's all you're going to have. So that's all I have.
All right, Madam Secretary, we're going to call for the vote.
Member Perez?
Aye.
Member Owens? Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Oh, aye.
Member Kim Carr?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Little? The motion carries 7-0 to adopt the second and final reading of ordinance number 2000T-36.
All right, moving forward in our agenda, matters removed from the consent agenda. There were none. Other business, there was none. And then mayor council issues for city council discussion. We have consideration of possible action regarding a budget amendment for the enhancement of public safety. So, Member Owens, would you just make a motion to put that on the table?
Mike.
Yeah. So where's 11 at? I don't.
You're right.
Huh? Yeah.
On touchscreen, Woody.
On that screen. My computer ran out of, my laptop ran out, so.
You want some help?
Yeah.
Consideration of possible action regarding a budget amendment for the enhancement of public safety. Mayor, I want to put that on the table for discussion.
We have a motion and a second. With that, we're going to move to our chief. I believe he's got a presentation for,
Yes, sir.
For this item first.
Mayor and council, thank you very much for allowing us to speak tonight. First of all, I just want to apologize. I did not bring a Valentine present like the chamber did for y'all. So I'm getting off on the wrong foot already. I did wear red, so you got to decide, is that for you or is that for Chief Riley and support his fire department? I don't know yet. So to start off, start with our mission statement. Oh no, actually I want to introduce some people. I did bring a team with me tonight to help me out with this presentation. I have Chief Randall, Assistant Chief Randall, Assistant Chief Pat Savage. Also brought my crime analyst, Lindo Baker, who's ready for every question you want or have. And then my business administrator, Casey Crispin's here with us also. So thank you all for helping me out tonight. So the mission of the Pearland Police Department is to provide professional service to the community and develop citizen partnerships to work together to enforce laws, reduce fear, and positively impact the quality of service in Pearland. So a lot of those schemes, those words mean a lot to us at Pearland P. Professional service. We do that through our training every day, develop citizen partnerships. You heard me speak at the State of City last week about how important that is. We can have all the law enforcement officers on the street that you want, but if you don't have a community partnership and trust and transparency with your community, you're not going to be able to solve crime or have a crime-free or at least as little crime as possible in your neighborhood. And we see examples of that throughout the country when the citizens and the police do not get along. Those are relationships that were deteriorating for years before those things happened. But here in Pearland for the last 32 years, I can tell you that we have strived very hard, worked very hard for a positive relationship with our community, and I'll get into a little bit more of that during my presentation. So a couple of Pearland policing models that we do use, not all of them, but just a couple of the major ones. DDAX, data-driven approaches to crime and traffic safety, and community problem-oriented policing. So DDAX is supported by a number of professional organizations. The route operational guidelines call for partners and stakeholder participation, data collection, data analysis, strategic operations, information sharing and outreach, monitoring, evaluation and adjustments, and evaluation of outcomes. So when you talk about partners and stakeholder participation, we identify areas in town that we feel like we need more law enforcement, more condensed, hotspots, if you will. So we don't just go in there with officers and just start making traffic stops. We actually send officers out there to talk to the business owners, everybody in the area, to let them know that, you know, what's going on in their little area of town. Let them get to know the officers, because the same officers will work those areas every day. So they're going to get to know them a little bit better. They're going to have their cell phone numbers, and they're just going to know who to call. You know, we have some officers where the business owners don't even call the dispatch anymore. They just call the officer that's on patrol out there, and they answer the call over there. So it's a great relationship. That's one of the ways that we have been trying to help some of these hotspot areas. Community policing, like I've said, it's something we've been proactive for since I've been here. I keep forgetting to hit my thing. Proactive problem solving through community relationships, organizational structure, information technology systems, and agency management. Examples include sustained district and beat assignments, use of interdepartmental groups for problem solving, and technological-based solutions such as remote uploads. So you also heard me talk last week about our training here in Pearland. It's something we kind of hang our hat on, something we take very seriously. Pearland police officers that attend mandatory training every year and attend on average 4 times the minimum amount required by the state. PPD provided almost 30,000 training hours last year to us and a little over 160 other agencies. You know, as I said at the State of the City, that's something that was instilled in me early in my career. We trained every single week on something. It may have just been going to a street that's under development and doing some driving instruction, or it could have been, I can't say online, but I can say there might have been a VHS videotape pushed into a TV somewhere that would have some type of training. So every chief since then has kind of built upon that, including Chief Doyle, who kind of took it to the next level when we became a training provider for the state, which means any training that we provide, we get credit for that through the state, and other agencies and officers can come to our department and get credit for that training. So we kind of made our name for ourselves along those lines. We're on track to exceed the number of hours this year. It's also, it seems a bit very important recruiting tool also. The last few officers we've hired, one of the reasons they came to Pearland is because they attended some of our training, saw how professional our instructors were, actually talked to some of our officers on the breaks, and found out it would be a nice place for them to come and work. And we have quite a few in the last 4 or 5 months, and we have 2 more coming on next month that actually are coming from other agencies. And I'd say, name some of those agencies. They're pretty, I would say, very progressive agencies. One from League City, Sugarland, Deer Park, and a couple other areas. We're attracting some good officers. We do regular training and de-escalation tactics, crisis intervention, lawful and proper use of force, mental health, intermediate weapons, and many more. The training we require in these areas are above and beyond any state regulations. So along with our training initiative, after Chief Doyle became a licensed agency to provide training, we took it to the next step and actually realized that a lot of our officers in our department go to other academies and are instructors over there. So we have a lot of talent in our agency, so we decided, and we had a lot of other people come to our agency for training, so we petitioned the state to become a training academy provider. So our very first academy is going on right now. We have 5 cadets in the academy. I've talked to some other local agencies that are interested in sending their officers to our academy, but we wanted to get one underneath our belt and iron out all the kinks before we open it up to other agencies. But that's our ultimate goal, is to not just have an academy for our officers, but for local agencies as well. Because in the end, we're all working together. Some of us are answering the same calls. When you're talking about Manville and Alvin ISD, Missouri County, you know, those people are working together side by side on a lot of calls. So a little bit our public relations, community engagement. We do meetings with HOAs, civic groups, a lot of meetings with the schools, you know, above and beyond the SRO program, and apartment managers. We also have another initiative called Impact. It's a faith-based outreach. We reach out to our churches and have them all meet with the police department and talk about issues in our community and try to build some relationships there. If it's one thing we've learned through what's going on in police in the United States is you can't build a relationship during a crisis. You got to know these people ahead of time and get to know them and know what the issues are and the challenges, and it really helps. And that's actually proved to very beneficial for us because we've had a couple incidents in Pearland, if you recall, and we were able to reach out to those people and actually solve these problems a lot easier than if we didn't have these relationships beforehand. Something else we have is obviously National Night Out that most of you take part in. We also have youth engagement with Explorers, Teen CPA. Lately we had PE with the police, which is, it's working out good for the kids, but the cops are pretty tired at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And the SRO program has been a very good relationship with us in the school district for probably 25 years now. Our flagship program is our Citizens Police Academy. We had 53 classes, over 1,200 graduates. I believe, Mayor Cole, you were on council when we started that program, if I recall. I taught in the very first class, so it's been around a while. Another great program is rape repression and defense. It's self-defense training for ladies in actually one of our most well-attended programs. CRAZE training is offered to all businesses. The CRAZE training is more about active shooter response. So we do a lot of training with that for churches and in schools and things like that to teach them how to best handle a situation like that. Unfortunately, those things have happened in our country. So we got many more, but not limited to business and badges, project child safety, citizens on patrol, safe return registration, home inspections, security and vacation watches, and safe exchange zone there at the police department. So right now we employ 2 full-time crime analysts. One is exceptional, and the other one is here with us tonight. Lyndall, sorry, Lyndall. They like to focus on 5-year trend data for long-term analysis, and they use this data to make decisions on staffing requests, deployments, the DDAC zones I talked about, and crime trends. So through review of the data and following our commitment to open change, crime analysis facilitated 2016 major change to patrol districts, beats, and shift in start times, end and start times. Based on crime data, population density, travel times, and officer experience. And with that, we were able to reduce some response times. Our 90th percentile response time went down almost 2 minutes from 2016 to 2018. And then our average response time also went down a little bit also. So this is our current districts and beats. I realize that the pie chart that Mr. Pearson loves so much does not, the colors don't exactly match the map, but we can get a good idea. So A district is obviously in the blue, B district's in the middle. Separating that would be the railroad tracks, and then separating B and C district would be 288. You'll notice on the chart there that the calls for service are pretty close. So about 36% for A district, 34% for B district, and 30% for the west side. And that's all calls for service. So our uniform crime reporting, part 1, UCR. Part 1 crimes are the most serious offenses, include but not limited to homicides, assaults, sexual assaults, robberies, burglaries, vehicle burglaries, and auto theft. Note these numbers are reported as number of crimes per 100,000 and by FBI standards. So we use the benchmark cities we use for our salary survey, and you can see our place there is in the green. We're looking at about 1,500 per 100,000. Just a side note, about 93% of those offenses are property crimes. So this is our 5-year average. Part 1 crime is down 8% from the 5-year average 2021 lowest rate in 10 years. For our staffing right now, we have 178 allotted officers. As you can see, 1 chief, 2 assistant chiefs, 4 captains, 6 lieutenants, 21 sergeants, and 144 officers/detectives. Right now, we currently have 14 unrealized positions, which that means I have 3 in training, 5 in the academy, and 6 vacancies. The 6 vacancies should be down to 2 next month, because we do have 4 that should be on board in here in the next few weeks. Patrol officer staffing is currently at 93% of the allocated, 72 professional staff allotted, and you can see what that covers: jailers, crime victim liaisons, crime analysis, business administrators, crime scene investigators, and those are all duties that in some agencies are all done by line officers, but in this case we have the professional staff doing that.
All right, regarding patrol staffing, the PD's been using the Berkshire recommendation of supplementing our staffing through regular overtime. Between our openings, COVID and other long-term absences such as FMLA, military leave, since April of 2021, we have opened 2 overtime slots per shift. While this is not mandatory overtime, if nobody signs up to work it, we do not force anyone to do so unless there are emergency criteria met as designated by the shift commander. In the last 6 months, 47% of the posted slots were not filled. Currently, the department has used 43% of our allotted overtime, and we are 34% of the way through the year. The holidays always have a large impact on our overtime usage, and it's not uncommon for us to be over at this point. COVID and the Omicron variant had a huge impact mid-December through mid-January and created a need for additional overtime posting due to short staffing. We believe as we continue to fill openings and with the COVID numbers going down, we will resume normal overtime usage. When patrol staffing is insufficient, the first impacts are to response times and the ability to perform proactive functions. The department strives for at least 40% discretionary patrol time on average. This means that during a 12-hour shift, about 5 hours of it should be available to patrol neighborhoods, make traffic stops, work on problem areas, or simply be available for another citizen call for service. For 2021, our patrol reported 52% discretionary patrol time. Overall, we're properly maintaining sufficient available time in patrol. Regarding tonight's agenda item to discuss public safety enhancements, in part through additional overtime, City Police leadership does not feel this specific supplement is needed at this time. Leadership continues to have the option, but generally does not force overtime on personnel. This is due to the negative impacts of fatigue, wellness, and morale. We feel confident in the support we receive from our elected officials and city leadership to post overtime as needed to address public safety needs. And if those needs arise, we'll do so. Regarding the public safety enhancement through neighborhood grants, the PD leadership believes that if narrowly specified, these grants could be used to leverage public-private partnerships to enhance safety. For example, cost sharing, such as the grant covering 50% of the first-year cost, could go a long way in helping neighborhoods establish camera systems. The police department would recommend flock camera systems, as were detailed in a Thursday packet 2 weeks ago, and a requirement to data share with the city. If flock was part of the grant, it would have to be considered as a recurring cost, so those costs would need to either be absorbed by the neighborhood or have continued support from the city. One final note, the use of camera systems may have an impact on our Public Works Department's right-of-way division, and the mechanics of grant application, award, and compliance would need to be worked out. The police department does not feel that we have the capacity for the administration of grants or the monitoring of grant compliance.
So from the date of testing to boots on the ground on their own, it can take anywhere from 6 to 16 months to get a police officer hired and trained. This means that our personnel requests are always looking at least that far into the future. We believe if there's a desire to make an immediate impact on crime in Pearland, there are other options which can be deployed more quickly and help officers already on the streets be more effective and efficient. Among these recommendations I'll go over is the addition of 21 flock ALPR cameras to supplement the 9 that we plan to implement with narcotic seizure funds. This is a subscription-based service, and We believe that the addition of 21, based on recommendations from our analysts, would help us more efficiently kind of blanket the city. Vigilant Solution Software is item 2. This provides the commercial side of the ALPR data that's available to us. Vigilant's the largest provider of LPR devices and softwares, for example, used by repo drivers, businesses, others, places that have an interest in vehicles. The cost of having access to this commercial data would provide us with access to their database. In our immediate area, over the last year, there were over 4.5 million license plates scanned. It's an incredible amount of intelligence can be used to follow up on in cases. Third item, the Blue Light Analyst software. This software would be used by our crime analysts as a visual analysis tool designed to turn data into intelligence. The software allows analysts to discover networks, associations, and trends using both internal and external data sources to reveal relationships between entities. Primarily, it helps them provide linking capacity between organizations. It would also be used in judicial proceedings where a visual representation of criminal links could help lead to a successful prosecution. Item 4, the One Solution Freedom software allows for officers and case detectives to have connectivity with RMS and CAD through their existing smartphones. This allows location services not currently available. The impact is that dispatch would have situational awareness of all of the personnel who may be near the scene of a major incident they would otherwise possibly not known. The last item, drone/unmanned aircraft systems improvements. Our drone team's looking to acquire hardware and software which would allow Pearland to be one of the first agencies in the nation to use drones as a first responder. This basically means that a drone operator would launch a drone without additional restrictions, and the drone could respond to the area to provide an in-the-sky visual for officers on the ground. This essentially gives Pearland the ability to use drones in a manner similar to other larger agencies which rely on traditional aircraft like helicopters. And there will be a white paper forthcoming on that topic. So moving forward, or give you a little more information on the 30 camera flock deployment, the 9 plus the additional 21 requested. The 9 green dots represent locations we'll cover with the seizure funds based on crime analysis, and the light blue dots represent the 21 additional cameras requested. You'll note that there's no camera at the Friendswood city limits on Broadway because Friendswood already has the cameras in place at our border. Due to the information sharing that we've been participating in since March of 2021, we're able to access law enforcement data or any subdivisions within our city that share the data with us. If, as discussed with public safety grants, neighborhood shared cost, there would be the opportunity to further extend that public-private partnership to provide even more cameras within the city.
So per our staffing study, just got some highlights here. Just a side note, this is my starting my 23rd year for being involved in the city police department budget. And I've been to almost 23 kickoff meetings now, and none of them ever started out with, hey, this is going to be a great year. So when we put in a staffing request, there's one thing Chief Doyle always instilled in me is put in what you need, not which. Don't play games with the budget. Don't ask for 10 officers if you need 5. We understand if we ask for 5, we might not get 5, but we're still not going to play that game. And he never allowed that, and I've never allowed that. If I put something in my staffing study, that's what I feel like I need to bring this department forward to where I think we need to be to combat crime and have a safe city. Understanding that, there are limitations. But so in this year's budget, reclassify 2 officers to sergeants. That's actually I think one officer is going to be for hopefully starting a narcotics unit, the other one for spec ops, 6 TCOs. Our NINA standards, we're well low on TCOs. We have a lot of turnover for TCOs. It's a very high stress job. And that's actually a place where overtime is really taking a toll on our employees. 4 police officers, 1 for each squad, a crime scene investigator, administrative assistant for our training cadre, 2 SIU detectives for a little bit more proactive, reclassify 1 part-time receptionist to a full-time records clerk, 2 jailers, and then 1 police officer for warrants. So in conclusion, one of the strategic priorities is a safe community, making Pearland a welcoming place for everyone by ensuring a safe environment and providing efficient and effective public service for our residents, business, and visitors. So a lot of the police department is an integral component of other strategic priorities. Much of the focus is on safe community. We've been doing a great job of addressing crime through the data-driven approaches to foster a safe environment and utilizing technology to improve efficiency and effectiveness of our services. And that completes my report.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Clay, do you have any additional?
No, appreciate the Chief and everybody putting that together in relatively short notice, and hope that was a useful backdrop.
All right. With that, we do have 3 citizens that had signed up to speak to this particular item. Have Mayor Pro Tem present them.
Thank you, Mayor. I overheard some people ask what a TCO is. So does somebody want to speak to that maybe?
It's a telecommunications operator, also known as a dispatcher. The person who answers 911.
All right. Thank you for that. Mayor, before we do, they've all checked that they're applicant representatives. So I just want to, and some of them are from the same group. We've got, Christy Nair, Kendrick Gray, and Darren. I'm not sure. So are y'all speaking on behalf of an HOA? Okay, so because there are multiples, we'll give you 3 minutes each unless you wanted to designate one person to speak on behalf of the group. Okay, and so so the rest of you, we're going to give him 5 minutes then, and then he'll speak on behalf of the group. Please state your name and address for the record, sir, and you've got your 5 minutes right up there. Thank you for joining us.
So my name is Kendrick Gray. Address is 3724 Ashford Bridge Lane. That's here in Pearland, 77584. I live out on the west side of town, and we're here representing the residents of South Lake community. Probably about a little bit over a month ago, we had an incident in our community where an individual or individuals drove into our community and they shot up one of our homes. Multiple gunshots through the door, through the bricks. And from what I understand, there was a family there. There was a mom and there was some younger kids there. And luckily, nobody was injured. But it raised a big concern in our community. A lot of folks were shaken up by that incident. We live in a very diverse community, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of young families with a lot of young kids there. And this kind of brought everybody to their knees because nobody ever thought this would happen in our community. So we're here tonight, like I said, we're supporting South Lake, and then also Mr. Benjamin Peck is the adjacent community, Shadow Grove. He's here with us. We essentially are 2 different communities, but we share the same ingress and egress. And so we're here requesting support from the city to fund cameras, to help fund cameras that we can put at those entrances and exits to help our police chief and his team, if this ever happens again, catch those individuals who are responsible for doing this kind of harm to our community. I've been here in Pearland for about 15 years. And I know there are things that happen around the city, but I've never experienced nothing like this before. I've never heard of that, especially in the subdivision that I live in. So we're all pledged to support public safety and to help keep our residents safe. And so I know we're last on the agenda, but we're first to stand in line requesting those funds so that you guys can help us put those cameras in our community. That's basically all I have. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add? Benjamin, you have anything you'd like to add? Everybody's good.
If you wanted to say something, we would have you go up separately. Are you finished with your comments, sir? Okay. Okay, we'll allot the balance of the time remaining for you. Please clearly state your name and address for the record, and when you conclude your comments, please see the city secretary. She's going to have you fill out a speaker form.
Thank you. My name's Benjamin Peck. My address is 3207 Vintage View Lane. I'm the president of the Shadow Grove HOA, and I'm just here to support this effort as well. Like Hendrik said, believe that the drive-by shooting that happened in their neighborhood, the people that did that left through our neighborhood, and we don't currently have any cameras in either one of our neighborhoods. So it's and being on the western edge of town, I know that when I've called police for different things, the response time has been pretty extended. Obviously, they were pretty minor things, but you know, the drones and other efforts that are talked about in these measures that the police chief is asking for, I think would go a long ways to help improve the safety and sense of security that those of us that live on the far western edge of Pearland have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, that concludes our comments for this particular item.
All right, good. We'll turn to council for questions, comments, and concerns. I'll start with Member Kamkar, since this was an item you brought forward.
Yes, Mayor. There's so much stuff. First of all, thank you to the members of the community who showed up today on short notice. I live, just for the record, in that neighborhood, and I had a lot of very concerned folks. This was December, and remember, it's been a while, and the concern was, why is this happening in my house, in my neighborhood? And it wasn't one drive-by, it was two on the same evening, which I've never heard of. I don't know how that works, how you come back, how brazen it is to come back a second time, but that happened. And that imprinted on me, because that's probably less than 3,000 feet as a crow flies to the front door of my house. And there's people who live right next door, and the amount of alarm is palpable, and I feel it. And so I just want to thank those folks for coming. Can I pull up the two recommendations that we requested, just so we know what we're talking about? Member Orlando was gracious enough to give me a second to at least put these on the table so we could have the discussion. That doesn't mean we're going to do everything there, but I'd like to at least have the two items that were the request on the screen, please.
It's in what Ron sent out this afternoon.
And thank you to the council for letting us talk about this. I know it's late evening. I'll let these gentlemen filibuster. I'm gonna go over a couple items. Josh, will you also get the supplement item ready as well? I'm gonna hit to that supplement item, but I'll filibuster here so we can keep this machine moving. So essentially what happened is this item happens in late November, early December, a drive-by twice in the same neighborhood on the same night. And then I'm gonna go over a litany of items that we have covered, that I have had information brought to me. It may not be exposed to the general public as clearly, but these are all public record items. On 11/18 at 10:47 p.m., we have a stabbing. Here, domestic event, but still stabbing nonetheless. Then on 1/7, so January 7th, an aggravated robbery in the Town Lake area. where people were advised 2 people in ski masks had guns and fled the scene in a tan and gray van after waiting essentially for somebody to come out of their homestead. This was late at night, obviously. That's just 2 items. On the 25th, we have a driver is picked up in a traffic stop with a prohibited weapon. And then the passenger, as somebody had an outstanding capital murder charge warrant waiting for them from Galveston County. And then lastly, the burglary and assault that happened on January 27th, that there was a public comment from the police that essentially late at night, 4 or 5 people are out burglarizing neighborhoods. The police show up. These people are scared. They run away. They hit this police officer. There's a shooting where one of the suspects was hit, but they assaulted a police officer with their vehicle. And just with those items as my frame of reference, the activity is too much now. It's just too much. And I don't blame anybody at the PD in our city. This is a result of the revolving door criminal justice system north of us, and they're coming down here. But the reality is there is more activity. We need to be more active. And at this point, those 3 or 4 incidences happen. I've started to realize I need to start saying something. I talk to I consult with our other council members. We all want to work on this issue, but we need to start somewhere. The activity cannot increase with criminals and us be reactive. At some point, we have to start taking proactive measures to start protecting our citizens and helping them feel safer in this city. And our PD does a phenomenal job, but this is also a resource discussion. This is also a manpower discussion, and we have to evolve with that. I want to just add, give me a second before you beat me up, Chief. So those 4 instances happen, and at this point, I've made a public statement saying we need to do something. I'd like to just start going through what has subsequently happened since then. This one's bad, but there's a jugging. That's a technical. What is that, Chief? What is a technical term for what jugging is?
Aggravated robbery. Usually, what happens is these crooks will sit by a financial institution, a bank, and just look for. They know who to look for. People walking out with what looks like an envelope full of money, maybe somebody elderly, and they'll follow them to where they think it's a good location to take that money from. Sometimes it's at their house, sometimes it's at another business, sometimes they wait till they get out of the car and then break into the car.
They keep an eye on you, right? They're essentially watching somebody leave with the place with dollars.
Right.
This happens at 11:17. Is that, in police terms, is that broad daylight? Is that just
I'm assuming
during
it
the
was
daytime?
AM.
11:17 a.m.
Yes.
Okay, so somebody is being jugged.
It's going to happen when the banks are open.
Yeah, in Pearland in broad daylight. And in this particular instance, person who reported this recently visited his bank in the city of Houston and that his backpack was missing from his vehicle. It appears the suspect fired shots into the vehicle in order to break the glass and steal the victim's backpack. So they followed somebody from Houston to Pearland in broad daylight. And if that person had probably been in the car, may have used the weapon on them. But it's in broad daylight. That's the thing that just, I can't put my arms around it. Here, let's do another one here. Just this is since I've put this out there. February 7th at 23:47, we have a discharge of a firearm in the commission of somebody evading arrest because they were trying to burglarize a car in Pearland. And somebody goes out there, shoots the weapon, trying to scare off these people. Another burglary, another incident in the city of Pearland. It's just a lot more activity. Here's one on February 8th, so less than a week, a little less than a week from now. Here's the direct comment from the report. I'm going to redact some of this. On February 8th at 18:47, so that's almost 7 p.m., not quite light, not quite dark, a discharge of a firearm call was dispatched to redacted address in the C area. The homeowner advised someone had shot a couple of rounds through the door. Upon arrival, officer redacted verified that the bullets had indeed been fired at this residence. 6.45 auto casings were located in the street in front of the home, as well as numerous strike locations on the home. This is the thing that's scaring me. Numerous neighbors and witnesses were interviewed around 18:31 hours. A suspect vehicle can be seen approaching the area, stops on the road, backs up, and waits. This is early evening. The vehicle then drives in front of the residence, and 6 shots are fired at 18:43. Okay, that's another incident. I got 2 more to go. Discharge of a firearm at Bombshells. This is at 1:52 a.m. I don't put Bombshells, people are going there. I don't put that all on our folks, but that's investigated by Harris County, and that was on the 12th, so that was this weekend. And then I have one more item.
Just to be clear, that was a Harris County officer that actually discharges.
That's right. So some guys were getting rowdy, and he discharged. Here's one. This was actually yesterday. Today's the 14th. This is yesterday. So at 2:13, a driver was robbed at gunpoint. When the driver tried to flee, the robber shot at the driver. That was yesterday. Folks, I commented on the 4th item saying we need to do more, and then there's 6 more items to go, all various items, but it's happening here. I'm not blaming anybody, but we need to do more. For the residents, I know that there was a discussion, Mr. Savage, that we don't have the capability to monitor a grant program. I think we need to find the capability to give out these grants, let the residents, the HOA, use the city's resources, their tax dollars, and use it in their neighborhoods. I'm supportive of the 21, but I would like to do the grant program. Right, these are happening at people's houses. It's not happening out on 518. These drive-bys are happening in their residences, in their neighborhoods. We need to do more. The requests that you have on public safety and more personnel, can we expound on that a little bit, Chief?
Which one?
You have about 9, I think you had 9 recommendations.
Okay, so let me get the four officers, like I said, are going to go to one per squad.
It's page 23 of the deck.
Okay. Our goal is to try to have 18 officers per squad. I think we're a couple short on each squad right now. So that they help us with response times, help us with call volume. The SIU detectives, we started that program 2 or 3 years ago. They've been very successful, and especially like these bank juggings and things like that, they've done a great job of getting some of those suspects and actually preventing some of that happening in Pearland. Crime scene investigator, there are thousands of pieces of evidence that the crime scene is dealing with right now. We want to actually have another investigator in there to help us with our on-call volume and actually help us with evidence processing and free them up a little bit more to actually.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Chief, what would be being proactive, trying to do the deterrent as opposed to a crime happens and we investigate? What would be the items that you recommend we do?
Well, those are in order right there. That's my order right there. 2 sergeants, the 6 TCOs, the 4 patrol officers, and crime scene investigator, SIU detectives. When you talk about police work and everything, the TCOs are very important. Somebody's taking those calls. That's wearing on those individuals day in and day out. HR would confirm that we have a lot of turnover in that area. We're short-staffed in that area. They're working a lot of overtime, and that is just a job that unfortunately the industry does not pay very well. So it's hard to keep those individuals, and I would challenge any police officer or anybody to go try to sit in there and do that job every day.
I agree that every employee is part of the team, especially on our public safety side, and we need everybody. The world needs everybody. I really want more deterrent. I want more.
Well, that's why we're asking for the cameras. I mean, it's not all about people; it's about technology. I mean, we all know that. That's why we have my crime analyst sitting over there. He can tell us more about where this crime's happening and how to combat it than any of us sitting in here can.
If we put the $191,000 in there that you recommended, you feel it will be safer?
Are you asking me for a guarantee?
Well, I'm just talking about the software and all this stuff. That's like the number one item you presented to us was all this software.
In my best judgment, in my professional aspect judgment, I think that would go towards I think that would increase it a lot to help us combat some of this crime and to actually be able to investigate and get some of these criminals in jail.
I'm supportive of the $191,000 and will be if that request is made. On the public safety grants, I want to deploy it where the people come and tell us we need the help. And that's not for one neighborhood, that's across the city, but we need to do more. You're telling us we want more cameras. This particular group wants to do that. I think it can help. Not every neighborhood can be covered by the flock or whatever, but we need more. And I think if the folks want it, we need to apply for it. I need more than these 4 patrol officers. I can't do that in this emergency section, but in the September budget, I'm going to ask for 8 to 10. Give you more. We can add some of these in, but this is too much activity, Chief. And I'm not blaming you. I'm not blaming the team. We're dealing with a group in the north that don't want to enforce the laws, and those folks are coming down here, but we just have to take a more proactive stance. I can't do anything about the folks there. All I can do is once they get down here, they see a cop car.
I'm not going to argue against doing more.
All right. If I may, much more quickly, public safety is one of the top issues that people come and talk to me about, especially now. Maybe it's water billing, but other than that, it's traffic and it's public safety. I did the CPA program, was extremely impressed by everything that we're doing in Pearland, and I think we've only added to that capability since I did that about 3.5 years ago. And so we're talking about some of these incidents, these high-profile incidents that we see that are very disturbing. I think that shows the elevated climate in this area. But what I'm most impressed in is how much we have tamped down on the crime in terms of the stats. When you're seeing in Houston, when you're seeing in cities big and small across the country, those really explode. And I think you put the emphasis on the right spot, Chief, which is that all of these things are investments that occurred over years, whether that's training, whether that's relationships with the community, whether it's this technology and this infrastructure that we've built up. And so I'm very supportive of these investments that are not, hey, this is some kind of Band-Aid, but this is going to bolster our long-term capability to put the bad guys in jail, to catch the criminals behind this. And I think we heard, real-life examples of how some of that technology would be put into place in real life. And so I think it's real, what we're talking about. You see it on the news, you see it in the crime stats. I think we've done a hell of a job in Pearland of going against the grain of that trend. And if we're going to see the next few years be an elevated crime environment in the Houston area, in the country, I think we need to continue to make those investments. So I am supportive of those, the requested technology requests on slide 21 as well. I'm not sure how you layer on the component that allows some neighborhood grants, but I think this is really going in the right direction, and appreciate the really thoughtful commentary and thorough presentation from you and from Chief Randall and Savage. Thanks so much.
Any other questions, comments from council?
I think we're all in agreement.
Just a couple things.
It's consideration and possible action.
Yeah, I don't know what action we're taking. I look through this and you look at the data, which we've got data analysts, whether he's the best or not, but he's at least second best in the city.
He's definitely the best.
And so everything I'm looking at looks like we're heading the right direction. You look at the, what do you call it, discretionary patrol time. So I guess I think when Camquire, you mentioned your frame of reference, I get that, and I'm not saying my frame of reference will be any different, but coming from the frame of reference of the whole city,
So what are you saying?
I'm saying that, just to clarify, the chief hasn't asked for anything, the PPOA hasn't asked for anything, and all the stats say that we're headed in the right direction. And so am I in favor of supporting the police? Certainly. Do we need to roll out technology? Certainly. I was excited to see that we already are rolling out the flock system. We've talked about the HOA grant program in the past, and I look forward to rolling that out now that there is the technology to integrate so it can be real time. And in terms of, I guess, slide 23, can we clarify that's the recommendations and requests for next budget cycle?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If we want to move some of those up, okay. But I think that'd be handled more appropriately in the normal budget.
Member Carbone, would you be my second if we put the 4 patrol officers and we got them in earlier and started going on that?
If the chief can use them.
Chief, can you use more police officers?
Well, I'd be asking like Parks can use some more money. I mean, and I guess I hesitate to we've got staff scrambling on all kinds of stuff, and now we've got however many staff here tonight, and we've got a budget process. So if there's something that needs some urgent attention, that's great, and we can do a budget amendment for that. But in terms of adding officers, so we've got comp and class, we've said you have to. We've got drainage, we said we have to, and now we're going to do this. And I think we playing whack-a-mole. We need to do it all in concert during the budget process. That'd be my.
Member Carbone, I agree with you. I'm just going to boil it down for everybody. There's more activity coming our way, and just being more proactive on some of these items. We can't put 50 more police officers tomorrow. I understand that, but we have to make some measures. The grant funding, I think, is something that residents can go do in a short amount of time and start feeling like we're being proactive on something. If the overtime is not the answer, because apparently we're not using all of it, I'm not wed to that idea. I don't want to push this to September on some of these things. That's why I asked for a motion in a second and for a possible consideration action. I don't want to go spend more money if I don't have to, but the reality is we always say public safety is number one. And this is those items. I literally, and I'm not trying to make more of it. The victim stated that he was sitting inside his vehicle, during which 2 black males in a newer black Cadillac pulled up alongside the driver's side of his vehicle. The victim stated the suspect and his passenger exited the vehicle, pointed a handgun at him, and demanded his money. Then shot at him, didn't kill him. And then when he finally tried to drive off, he couldn't. And then the person comes and takes his money and then pistol whips him. I want to read this quote. At this point, the victim stated he stopped his vehicle, complied with the suspect's orders, giving up the wallet and cash that was in his possession. The victim stated that the suspect then used a handgun to strike him, quote, pistol whip him twice in the head. This is yesterday. This wasn't like, 2 months ago.
Yeah. So let me rescue you for a second. So Chief, how long have you been in Pearland?
32 years.
32 years. Have we ever, in the history since you've been here, had a drive-by shooting?
Yes.
How often?
I couldn't answer that,
but it has happened, and it does happen periodically. I do not want to minimize anything that's going on, but I also want to put things in context. Okay? Put slide 14 of your presentation up for just a second. And this goes to, so it says here part 1 crime rate. So I'm assuming part 1 means something?
yes, I think the slide before that, or maybe the one before that one. There you go.
That's right. So this is mainly your violent crime is what it would be kind of classified. Homicides.
Some of it is, but also you see burglaries, vehicle burglaries are on that also, auto theft.
So back to 14. This goes to Member Carbone's comment. We are trending in a better direction, and I don't know. We're just barely into 22. Here we are, midway through February. So I don't know if we have any, stats in early February or through early February, the first 45 days, that give us any look on what 22 is looking like. But is there a spike in 22, or is it continuing?
Maybe Lyndall could answer that, but I'd.
And again, we may not have enough data in 22 to say that, and I want to be fair to that. But if we're seeing spikes, because what we're hearing is it's all increasing, Yet the data over the last several years doesn't say that. Doesn't mean that a particular area, and I think you have DDAC set up for those particular hotspots,
Right.
that you can see those trends and you can increase patrols.
Right.
And so again, I don't know if we have anything in 22, but I want to make sure that whatever we're doing with thoughtful, intentional process to, in fact, be out in front, but not necessarily a knee-jerk reaction to something. We've got dollars in reserves and everything. We could just throw money. But I want to make sure it's being used in an appropriate fashion. That's all.
Mayor, let me kind of jump in a little bit. I think there's purpose to our process.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why we go through the budgeting process the way we do. I think there's a term that we use sometimes when it comes to zoning or rules associated with planning and zoning, which kind of sticks with me generally and how you should operate an organization. We don't want to be capricious and arbitrary and reactive to a crime that just happened. Look, I have good friends of mine that live in Walker Landing, and their neighbor's house got shot, and they were scared to death. And they called me the night of, and I was certainly communicating with police to say what we're going to do. I mean, I hated that happened. Turned out it was a son's girlfriend's ex-boyfriend that shot at the house. Right? I don't know what overtime does to resolve that. There is a level of crime that is unpreventable, and everything that happens to any of our citizens breaks my heart. I hate reading the emails that say this thing happened. I celebrate the emails when we show that that we've caught the criminals. I think generally, and Mayor, you and I go back in this city for a while, so we were here when Chief Doyle was policing. I don't know if I'd ever met a more respectable police officer than that, and I think Johnny, you would probably agree with me there. I think
Absolutely.
When we chose his replacement, when he chose to retire, we were very adamant that position go to you because we knew that this department would be in good hands. Part of that is not just the experience, but also the judgment. Trust your judgment. We have a difficult time every year allocating all of our priorities, and that's why we do it in the budget cycle, because we have to balance everything. I think with Member Carbone, I would love to add 8, 10, 12 more police officers, try and get better results, but police officers are not inexpensive employees. And if we're also working towards a bond referendum and also working towards a desire to lower the tax rate, and we're adding the police officers, at some point, some of our other departments are going to suffer to the point where they may not function because we're trying to balance too many things. If we do this now, if we make allocations now, reactive to things that may break our heart, then we're not doing it in the purposeful manner for which our budget process was intended. Now, I agree that if the department has these needs, I'd like us to allocate. I don't think there's ever been a year where we haven't almost fully allocated most, if not all, of the requests of the chief, and we've also listened to the PPOA and their requests. I don't think this will be a different year, even though I won't actually have a vote on it. I'm comfortable with the direction we're going. I'm comfortable with the decision making that our police department is making. I am compelled, as we all are, to be more aggressive if we can, but I don't want to be, again, arbitrary. The overtime, adding overtime where it's not needed, where it's not even being used, I just don't see how that helps to resolve anything. But the good news is we have an opportunity this Saturday to discuss as a council what direction we want to go, so staff has an understanding of what our priorities are. If we say, as we did last year in our retreat, this is our goal. This is the direction we're giving staff. Let's say it is to add 8 more officers because we as a council have all agreed that that's what we need, in spite of the to augment the chief's request, or we give them a standard. We want response time to be this level. We want crime per capita to be at this level. We want to meet a metric that is nationally understood. And frankly, I don't police, and I don't understand policing to the level as those who make a career out of it. So I don't know what the best standard would be, but I trust that our staff would give us something that we could use. But I think that we can provide that direction on Saturday if that's a topic that we wish to take up. Give staff some understanding of what our priorities are, and then let them incorporate that into the budget cycle as we normally would.
See, I guess I'll jump in. I would kind of maybe tend to agree. I don't really see a clear ask here, and maybe that's if this was a request, I would love to see that. I also really haven't heard.
Well, real quick, to clarify that, there was an ask. The original ask by the council members was $250,000 to go towards.
Right, yeah, I guess.
So I want to make sure there was a clear ask.
Yeah, so
when was a clear ask of $250,000.
I'm referring to an ask specifically from, let's say, the chief, or more importantly, I guess I haven't heard. I wanted to see also how this fits into I look at the city not as a bunch of independent departments that just kind of operate, separately from one another, but I guess we're all part of this one giant machine that works together to keep water running and streets safe. So I guess from Clay's perspective, I'd kind of like to see how you think some of this would fit into a broader picture. If we were to go down some of these roads, I would like to see this maybe smoothened out just a little bit more so we see where the priorities actually lie and what you think is manageable.
So I appreciate the ask, and you're exactly right. What you said about the system as a whole, no one department is an end to itself. Police and Johnny can't operate without others. I mean, should go without saying, but I think it's important to keep in mind. As he said, his number one priority from his perspective and recommendation for the fall will be dispatchers, because it doesn't do any good to have people out if we can't communicate with them, give them good information, et cetera, et cetera. That's a good example. I think the idea of recurring costs have to be kept high on the mind and have to be cautious. We can't, the worst thing we could do is start something that we can't keep sustained, right? So, that's always got to be in our mind, that it is, and I know it's on your minds. I think the flock memo that was already in the works, that's something that our colleagues are bringing forward, and we're not afraid to do that at the beginning of the year if we think there's a high gain and relatively low cost to do that. So that was in the works, and as was referenced, you have a chance to strategize this Saturday, and we have a mid-year budget allocation where we have a chance to make sure that maybe there's something that's one of the challenges with doing things this way. We don't know from the fire department if they've got something that literally is burning that we need to take care of, and so we do need to be a little bit more systematic about that. And I think you've got opportunities to do that. We're not so dogmatic that we say only budget time can you bring anything forward. We've shown that before. So I just suggest that this has been a good briefing. We keep this in mind. We won't set it aside until the fall, but let this come. We're going to do with your mid-year budget adjustments and opportunities. We need to take a look at revenues and expenditures overall and say what can we afford this year and bring that to you with the constant that safety is our number one. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And maybe one other thing that I'd like to see come out of this is, which I think this is a really good discussion. Some of the stuff I had no clue even existed. So, but I would also like to kind of see where the specific impacts are. If we make investments, let's say in some of the software, I know, Pat, you did a great job of going over some of that and what it's used for, but more specifically, I'd like to see maybe what some of the, I guess, potential outcomes would be as far as, I don't know, you've got part 1 crime. I don't know, is there part 2, part 3, part 4? I have no idea how many parts there are. And
maybe Chief Randall, if you could elaborate a little bit. Didn't Lindell solve a crime using Flock or another agency recently?
Yes, actually, we actually got contacted this past week by League City PD to let us know that a person went to a bank here in our city and ended up being the victim of a jugging in League City. Lindell actually went into the flock system in Friendswood and actually located the suspect vehicle information and has since passed that on to League City. The final outcome, I don't know, and obviously I don't want to talk too much about it. It's their case, but that's just one example. Also, since I do have the mic, Mayor, in answer to your question, for the month of January, it's down 7% compared to 2021 for UCR1 total crimes.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't think we're going to flesh out all of these things tonight, but I think this is a great start, at least a conversation about trying to find some use for these dollars if we wanted to move a little bit more swiftly. But I would like to have that clarity of where to go, what the impact would be, maybe before we take action. And I don't know that taking it necessarily tonight versus even if it's a couple of weeks from now, these things are deployed, I'm assuming, not immediately. Is that
right? It takes a little time to get them.
Let me try to maybe wrap around this and something that we could, maybe not get to tonight, but when we come back in a couple of weeks and are able to actually move forward with something. Because I think everybody agrees, we always want to utilize the right resource. I want to make sure we have a plan for it. Sounds like Chief's got somewhat of a plan for some technology. And maybe it's a technology package that we can deploy now, and then we have a technology package and people that we can deploy, in the budget year. Secondly, it sounds like we've got some thoughts around a camera program or a grant program and those types of things for some of our neighborhoods. Right now, I don't know what that would look like. I don't know what that application would look like. I don't know what the criteria would be. Is it first come, first serve? How does all that kind of work? Police department's not known for running a grant program. Maybe that's something that we have to get Joel and his office kind of involved to put some structure around that. I don't know how many homes are in South Lake. A little over 700. Okay, and I don't know about the neighborhood next door. How many? 380. Okay, I have 218 homes in mine, and we have cameras on the front and back that our neighborhood paid for. Police didn't pay for that. City taxpayers didn't pay for that. We paid for that. So I want to make sure that how that's working and all that, going as well, because there's only so many dollars and it's going to be gone. Then you have businesses that may want cameras. How, where, and what does that grant program look like? I think rather than us deciding that tonight, we need to have, what does it look like? Who gets it? What's the criteria for getting it? Rather than just saying, let's just do it. I think it's a great discussion. I think it's a great start. I really think this should have been presented as a workshop, not possible action, where we discuss this and then we come back with potential action.
Mayor, is it okay? Can we pull up the two items that were the requests? Just because I think that there's a fog over what we're asking and where we need to get to. And so the items are under item number 1, number 2. I just want to read those out for the record. Budget amendment authorizing an additional $250,000 for police overtime dedicated for patrol. Sources unallocated fund balance. Have the money. Item number 2, budget amendment authorizing an additional $250,000 for public safety grants that neighborhoods across the city can apply for. Source unallocated fund balance. Have that. So I don't want there to be any aspersions of what did we ask for? Did we ask for like a million things? We're asking for $500,000 that we have. I heard from the staff, and I heard we don't use enough overtime anyway, so this is throwing money at nothing. Chief, really quick, going back to those cameras, the flocks, and that software, can you use that today?
Absolutely. Well, we just used somebody else's the other day.
So if we made a motion to go and do that, you could go and buy those and start using those and deploy those in the city. And you would be asking for that most likely in September anyway. Can we just help now?
I would go to slide.
It would help as soon as we put them up. That's what I can tell you.
So it would serve a purpose that would help the citizens of Pearland be safer.
Sure. Pat, can you remind me if we said tonight we wanted them, how long would that take to get them?
it'd be a few weeks turnaround so we can get all the right-of-way issues worked out, because some of the territory is going to be Pearlands, some of it's going to be TxDOT's. Fortunately, the installation on these will go fairly quickly because they're pretty much self-sustained. Most of them are going to be solar powered, and they come with their own LTE connectivity.
This is roughly $191,000.
Yes.
I add all this up, and we asked for $250 for overtime, so I would be asking for less. Could we at least substitute and get this in the council and its wisdom? I can't just wait until we bureaucrat this all the way to September. I hate to be so brusque about it. I got 3 small kids at home. Member Carbone has small kids. You have small kids. A lot of us have kids here. There's families here. I want to be able to sleep better, Mayor. I hate to say it. It sounds so corny, but the Houston issues are going to be in Houston, but they're coming down here. Harris County issues are coming down here.
And I don't disagree with you. Well, like I said, nobody up here disagrees.
Right.
We need to.
And I'm not saying that. I'm just.
I just want to make sure that's out there, because there's plenty of sound bites that get used with everything that we say up here from time to time. And I want to make sure that everybody understands there's not a person on this council that thinks public safety is anything less than.
No, it's the priority.
Okay. It's just when a request comes in and it feels and seems very sporadic and willy-nilly on what we're going to do, I don't want to overreact.
Sure.
Just go and do. And I think, as I said, I think there's council concurrence on doing some of the technology pieces. Sure. And again, I think the recommendations and request here, and it's below the 250. I mean, it's $190,000.
So we're saving money. That's your favorite thing, saving money.
So I mean, yeah, I don't disagree. I think all I was trying to get to was, staff have a real package about what we want to do. Sure. And I'm not talking about belaboring this till September. I'm talking about give it 2 weeks or a month, and we come back and do this. That's what I was talking about. I was talking about wait till the budget. There's more things in here that are budget items, and I think the chief has talked about that. The second piece is I've heard from Member Carbone and others. I think there's some willingness to talk about a grant program, but what does that look like?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion. We have something on there that's consideration possible action to substitute the $191,000 of the technology that is up here on the screen, and that we do the research and come back 2 weeks on that, and then the same thing with the $250 for the grant program, that we push that to our next meeting, let the staff work this thing out, and go from there. That would be my motion.
Sorry, that was to.
It would be 2 motions actually.
The motion is to allow staff to flush it out and bring it back. Is that?
Convert item 1, which is the overtime piece, to this software piece. And then the second item would be push those 2 weeks from now, get those done.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Do we do a motion to that? We're just giving
Yeah, I
instructions.
think we could
to
just
staff.
give general consensus, correct, Darren?
Correct, because it's going to have to come back ultimately as a formal amendment at some point. But at this point, if the council wants to direct staff to bring that back at the next meeting, we can do so.
And that's what I've been hearing that through comments, that I think people are in favor of this today. But again, I think on the grant program, we don't even know what it looks like on how, what, and where that is. So let's.
Do we want to push that item then to 2 weeks?
Yeah,
that's all I'm trying to do is let's make sure that our staff has I think this is a good place, and then on the grant program, what does that look like?
I would be in favor of that as well, and also because I see the recurring costs, just to kind of see how that may escalate into the future budget cycles as well. But with the grant program, I also was kind of curious if we did deploy cameras and provide grants for cameras, if there is any type of
And the
cost
grants
share
are
or
not-
something that may also be ongoing. I would just I think there's a good opportunity to flush those things out. I am in favor of that.
The grant program isn't camera specific. If place says we want more lighting, why don't we consider? Something
Right.
that neighborhoods can do that they say we want input on, and go do that. I mean, it's our money anyway. It's the citizens' money anyway. If they think that they need it because they would like to do something in their area, I would rather do that. We all know that there's a lot of money in the budget, and some of it kind of kicks to the next year, and then there's things we can do and do it this year. And I want to start reducing this list that it's less frequent.
So the recurring on this is $121,000.
Yeah,
The
for-
upfront's 191.
I'm assuming
Right
that's
on this
that's
one.
maybe they for 1 year.
Yeah, and I would be careful about what was just said. There is not a lot of money in the budget. It's highly competitive. If we ask for $190,000, we have a balanced budget. We're legally required to. That money's got to come from somewhere. Typically, the process is we wait till a mid-year allocation because we see that we're getting additional revenue from property tax or sales tax, or there's less expenditures, and so there's room in the budget for us to reallocate the money because we are, again, legally bound to balance it. For us we shouldn't be habitually saying in each meeting, I want to add this and not understand that it's got to come from somewhere. So I think...
In fairness, this is unallocated fund balance.
Let me finish what I'm saying. Well, I think we've all agreed that safety is our priority. We want staff to go back and give us a more deliberate presentation as to if there's anything that we can do mid-year, where that funding comes from, how do we do that, give it back to us with a motion that we could carry, and then we get to Saturday, or actually prior to that, we're giving our department heads direction on what we would like from them in broad strokes, and let them tell us how they accomplish that.
Hey, could I jump in here for a second? Well, as far as the technology goes, that's been researched and vetted, and we could be ready to go on that. But as far as the grant programs you're talking about, that's going to take us more than 2 weeks to figure that out. So on behalf of my staff that would have to do that, give us a little bit more time to put something like that together.
You can go do this right now, what's on the screen.
A lot faster than I can the grant program. That's something that's going to be very, have to be researched very well, and a lot of
Vote on that
background.
then?
I would need a little bit extra time on the grant program. Put that
I
together.
get a motion that we
I would
enable, can we get a motion that we go out there and put this $191,000 to use for the citizens?
I would still like to
Can I-
down to the recurring before we.
We have a motion.
No, I mean, he said, can I have a motion? But
You can present the motion and see.
Chief, I have a question. Our neighbors to the east of us, Friendswood, have a crime rate that's 40% of what ours is. And I know ours is trending in the right direction. I think that's a reflection of your leadership and the fine officers that make up PPD. But what would you attribute their crime rate being so much lower than everybody else in the area? Is it the demographics? Is it the geography of how hard it is to get in and out of Friendswood? Is it the it just seems.
It would be all speculation, Councilman. I'd be afraid to try to comment on that.
I just wonder if there's something we could talk to them about. Say, or do they have more police officers per capita than we do, or is it?
I don't know what theirs is, to be honest with you.
I mean, it's just.
Hey, Chief. So,
Well, it's
Councilman, a
very
major
low.
driver on that is actually businesses. So, for example, shoplifting counts in our UCR ones, and in the city of Friendswood, there's not a lot of places for shoplifting to occur, unlike in the city of Pearland.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Can I make a motion to approve the requests that the chief has presented in this presentation?
I'll second it so we can get a vote on it.
All right. I got a second.
Yeah, so we have a motion and a second to present it, basically slide 21 out of the chief's presentation, recommendations and request to do that now. That's the motion, correct? I wanna make sure I
Yes, sir.
stated it right. Okay. So we have a motion and a second on that.
I just said I wouldn't feel comfortable unless we had an opportunity to discuss it, have staff come back and tell us, help us to understand where the allocation would be coming from for the balanced budget. I just don't see that there's a need to do this tonight when we've all discussed and stated that we want staff to give us better input so we can make a more discerned decision.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Member Carbone?
Yeah, my no vote will be, because this is not based off of data, it's based off feelings. And, yeah, it's not how we govern.
So would this then stand contrary to the direction that we gave staff earlier. If this does not pass, would it still come back 2 weeks from now with more information?
In my mind, yes. We will bring back, as I said earlier, with the mid-year, if not before.
Let's do that.
Whatever we can do. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? We do have a motion and a second on the table to actually move forward with the recommendations and requests as the chief presented on his slide 21. Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote on that.
We ready, Mayor?
Call for the vote, yeah.
Member Kamkar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
No.
Member Little? Member Perez?
No.
Member Owens? Member Orlando?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
No.
The motion carries 4-3.
Yeah.
All right, moving forward, in our agenda, we are at adjournment, so we will adjourn at 9:56.